Their work will be remembered as one of the greatest moments of this planet.
Mr. Scout. I know you're still weighing whether to return to Lumen. But the mark I've come to know is happy.
Hello, is anyone there? Is the board on? It's Marquez from Macro...
What you all did was one of the most painful moments in the history of this company.
What the hell?
But the four of you have become known as the face of Severance reform.
Okay, so we're not in trouble?
I don't think so. Milchick said we're famous.
All of us equally, or one of us is like the star?
Now if you feel that you can't go on.
So what the hell did you guys see up there?
It's not our world up there.
And your life is filled with much confusion.
My Audi's wife died a few years ago. Except the woman is Miss Casey.
So what are you gonna do?
I gotta get her out of here.
Mark, your Annie said she's alive.
This is obscene.
I just want to be sure.
And your world around is coming down.
Why did you do this? What is this all about?
Do you know something about Gemma?
Mark, there'll be no honeymoon ending for you.
Their work will be remembered as one of the greatest moments of this planet.
You don't value them. You fear them. We fear no one.
I'm tightening the leash.
If we let this happen to Miss Casey, who's gonna step up when it happens to us?
Now. Goodbye, Marquez.
Wait!
My name is Miss Huang. It's my first day here as deputy manager. Mark W.
Why are you a child?
Because of when I was born.
Hello. My name is Mr. Milchick. I manage the severed floor of Lumen Industries Branch 501. With me is our fellow in training, Miss Wong. Greet the viewer, Miss Wong.
Hello.
If you're watching this, you've recently made Severance a part of your workplace. As unsevered management, we're entrusted with interpersonal nourishment.
To this end, we employ rigorous orientation protocols. Here are the 127 steps to maximizing glee and enforcing a productive workplace. From there, secure camaraderie with a jovial round of ball game. Make sure the ball is well inflated and that the players achieve mutual fondness by the end.
May I? Consider augmenting the game with jokes, but mind professional boundaries, as crossing these may necessitate toxic work environments. Well, there you have it. Remember, managers, growth takes time, but happy workers bloom more quickly. To quote Lumen's founder,
The mouth which is busy smiling cannot bite.
You mentioned her kind of extracting the chip from Petey, and of course, when Grenier, the bodyguard in season 1, first comes to Cobel and talks about reintegration and about the possibility of Petey reintegrating, she was so dead set and so adamant that reintegration was not possible. And now that line makes a little bit more sense as well, because she was the one who created the technology, so she knew, or at least assumed, that this was an irreversible procedure, that it could not be undone. And yeah, in hindsight, you do see some of the small signs, but they were not very obvious. It wasn't like there was a ton of foreshadowing laid for this big reveal. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I thought it added a very interesting aspect to her character, and it made me maybe understand some of her character's motivations a little bit more as well. One thing we've been seeing at the beginning of season 2 was how determined, how desperate she was to retain her position as head of the severed floor. And I didn't know if that was just a power play for her, if it was just something that was taken away from her that she wanted back. But now there's like a deeper layer to it where, yeah, I totally understand now why she wants the head of the severed position back more than anything, and why she didn't even want to accept a promotion. She wanted that job in particular because she wants to be there to oversee her creation at the end of the day. She created this. She's emotionally invested in it as well as financially. So that made a little bit more sense to me after hearing that reveal, why she was just so determined to try and get that specific job back and not just be welcomed back by Lumen in any capacity.
Of course. Of course. And not only that, but we did see that she would find ways, even though she wasn't privy to the information, she would find ways to bring Miss Casey up and to see the
Yeah,
interaction. So she
yeah,
herself was finding ways to see if her technology was working. And one can only imagine how frustrating that must be, that you created this technology, you know that there are people working on it, but you don't have any of that info. You don't know if it's going
yeah,
well or if it's not going well. I'm not saying it's a good thing, right? This is horrible technology, and it's not
yeah,
a positive thing what she was doing. However,
yeah.
one can empathize on an intellectual level what that must feel like, having something taken from you and then not getting to see the process, not getting to see it come to fruition.
Yeah, not getting to see it through, not being there to oversee her creation, and on top of it, having to live all of these years, 12, 20 plus years almost, all the time, all the while, never being able to take credit for your groundbreaking technology. This is very much groundbreaking, revolutionary in terms of it can change the entire world, and it looks like it did. Um, Obviously, for more nefarious reasons. Again, the technology is used for some uh, nefarious means in terms of the morality of the severed program, creating innies, creating outies, having this kind of workforce that all they do 24/7, as far as they're concerned, is work nonstop, never any respite, never any downtime where they can appreciate the fruits of their labor. It's just a never ending workforce, which is why you often hear it referred to in the show as indentured servitude, because in a sense it is. But the
Mhm.
technology itself was revolutionary in terms of this took a genius level of engineering, and to be able to pull something like this off, not just engineering, but genius level of biology as well, and knowing the human brain and how it functions and what's possible. Again, it's definitely has painted Cobel in a very different light, where I see her a little bit differently now than I did before this episode. And I think that's is the point of episodes like this. When we get an episode that is only focused on one single character and we don't get any cuts to any other characters, it's just one single storyline followed throughout the episode. Um, these episodes always tend to be the backstory kind of episode where they peel back the layers of these characters, show you who Cobel is in a sense, why Cobel is the way she is, where she came from, some of the hardships she went through as a child, of which there were many that we found out. And you come away from this episode definitely with a different view on Cobel, but if nothing else, hopefully you come away with an understanding at least as to why she is so messed up, why she has all of these deep-seated issues that she has never quite been able to work out. We now finally have at least a small glimpse as to why she's so maniacal. It doesn't excuse it by any means, but at least it explains it a little bit.
Of course. And I mean, we're talking about child labor here, guys.
Yes,
Sevies,
exactly.
I see them in the chat um, talking about what it actually was. And it's kind of hard to judge her so harshly when we know what her background was like. And it reminds
Yeah,
us that behind every monster, there often is a very hurt child. And in this case, we see
yeah.
that it was just horrifying. Her childhood was horrifying. It was very traumatic. And um, yeah, the chat knows all. So I see
The
them
chat does
talking
know all.
about her childhood. Yeah.
Hmm. It was messed up. She definitely had a very a very messed up childhood, to say the least. Seeing what happened to her mother at such a young age, not being there with her mother in her final hours, as she was already sent off to the Myrtle Eagan School and the Wintertide program at that point. All of this stuff, trauma builds upon trauma, on top of trauma, on top of trauma, and eventually it becomes too much for a child or even for an adult to bear, where it is going to end up spilling over eventually. There's only so much you can kind of push and compartmentalize things before they inevitably come to the surface. It's a pressure buildup that is bound to happen at some point or another. And in this episode, I feel like we saw a lot of those things bubbling to the surface for Cobel. I imagine this is probably the first time she's been back to her town of Salt's Neck in a very long time, where she is connecting with old flames, old boyfriends, husbands, confronting her aunt for the first time in probably years, decades. And I got to say, how good was Hampton for an ether addict? I must say, he's a pretty cool dude. I gotta say, I went away from this episode having an appreciation for Hampton, especially in this scene at the very end of the episode with just one single line: "Come tame these tempers, assholes." Love that. Absolutely love that. I will definitely be clipping that and adding it to the stream. What was your thoughts on Hampton coming out of the episode? Did you like him, not like him? Did it switch midway? What did you think about him?
Hey, Hampton has it. I could definitely see Cobel is such a
He gets it.
strong woman. He gets it. He has it.
He gets it.
Cobel is
Yeah.
such a strong woman that she would need somebody like Hampton. And we kind of see Hampton's style, his attitude. And my favorite line, it's probably that one. The "come tame this tempers, assholes." That is so
Yeah.
cool. Like,
So good.
such flair, such pizzazz. So I could see why Miss Cobel was interested in Hampton, right? And
Yeah.
also it's also delivered by Hampton. My second favorite line of the episode: "Do you want to get high?" Because it was such
You
a
want to get
serious
high?
it was such a serious episode, and then all of a sudden it was just like the tension broke, right? She was crying about her mother. It was so traumatic. It was this crying that it sounded so painful, right? And he breaks the tension by just saying, like, "Do you want to get high?" So yeah, Hampton was really cool.
I liked him. I went away from the episode really, really liking him. He was an interesting character, and like you said, only somebody like him would be able to be with someone like Cobel. Like, in terms of her personality, who she is, how strong-minded she is, she needs someone that is kind of an equal equivalent, who can kind of maybe call her out on her bullshit every once in a while. Somebody who can stand toe-to-toe with her, I guess. And I do get that sense from Hamilton, that he can not only stand toe-to-toe with her that way, but he's also very smart as well. He also seems to be incredibly smarter than he appears. Because even at the beginning of the episode, when we first see him and she first walks into the diner, he doesn't seem very happy to see her at first, but instantly he starts talking about spreadsheets and bottom lines and all of this corporate jargon. It's like, okay, this guy isn't just a stupid ether addict. He's actually pretty smart too. So I think the intellectual level between him and Cobel is probably part of what made them work too.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And when I went back and I analyzed what Hampton said, it's 100% what it is. It's the infrastructure of the town. It's the fact that a company looked at the town and thought that it was good enough for them to start a factory, but not good enough to put anything back into the town, not good enough to put resources. So it made perfect sense. And all the Sebies agree, of course. We're so happy to see you, Sebies.
Indeed. So happy to. Yeah, before we dive any deeper into this, let's say what is up to the awesome chat, the awesome Sebies that are joining us this evening. And again, big thank you to everybody who is joining us on this fine Saturday evening. And let us know throughout the night, what did you guys think of the episode? I know this episode has been met with a kind of I wouldn't say lukewarm response, but this episode has definitely been a little bit divisive in terms of some people are really loving it and some people are not really loving it, and that's totally cool. It's totally fine. We always just want to hear everybody's honest opinions. If you loved the episode, great. Tell us what you loved about it. If you didn't like the episode and thought it maybe could have been handled a little bit better, then absolutely tell us that as well. We want to know what you guys are thinking. Let's see who we got here. We got Philip in the house. What is up, Philip? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We got Peach in the building. She has an evil genius / crazy old aura about her. She does have that kind of evil genius, crazy, maniacal Victor Frankenstein aura to her now after seeing this episode, for sure. Definitely does. We got Christiane in the house. What is up, Chris? Good to see you as well. We got Steed in the building. Welcome, welcome, Steed. Good to see you. We got S. Dragon Nasty. Dragon Nasty. Good to see you as well, Drag Nasty. We got James Buckley. Great name. S. Drag Nasty.
Love the name.
Love it.
Love the name.
Love the name. Yeah, that's a great name. That is a great name. We got James Buckley in the house. What is up, James? Good to see you as well, my friend. I see All City in the building. We got Unbreakable Net in the house as well. Welcome one, welcome all. So good to see everybody. We got Chris B in the house. I'd say Yellow Jackets had a way better episode. I'm still not. That was one thing I meant to do, was cover a little bit of Yellow Jackets in season 3 as well. I just became a little bit too busy between this show and personal life stuff, that I'm actually still not caught up on Yellow Jackets. That's unfortunately why I haven't put out any videos yet. But yeah, I have no idea how season 3 of Yellow Jackets is going. I see a little bit of discussion every once in a while in our Yellow Jackets Discord channel, but I try not to pay too close attention to it because I don't want to see any spoilers until I actually have a chance to watch the episode. So I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure where Severance is doing right now and how season 3 has been received. But if they had a better episode than this, or at least you enjoyed Yellow Jackets more than this week, that is totally cool. At least that tells me that maybe there's some interesting things happening on Yellow Jackets, if nothing else. I'm gonna have to catch up. On Yellow Jackets so I can start at least discussing it on streams with everybody, or at least maybe putting out some videos before the season passes us by. We got 88 Keys as well. Look us up, 88 Keys. We got Dread State in the building. Now we know why she wore the chip necklace. It does make a little bit more sense. I mean, a lot of us wondered if she was maybe severed at one point and that was her chip that got removed, or if there was some other sentimental value. Now that I see that, I'm starting to wonder, was that maybe the first chip, like the prototype, the very first one that she ever constructed before they went to mass production? Anytime you have an invention like this, there's always a prototype. There's always the first. And that's what I'm starting to wonder, if that chip she used to wear around her necklace was maybe the prototype Severance chip, the first one she ever created. So it had that sentimental value to her, maybe. Makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And you could only imagine that if you're somebody who works on this sort of thing after work, right? Because she had a full-time job. And so that means that at some point she was able to work on this. It would be so special to be able to hold in your hands what you have created. So that makes a lot of sense. I have seen a lot of Sebie say, however, that maybe it was her mother's chip. And I see it in the chat from Steve. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's what I originally thought. I totally originally thought that as well, Steve. I get the feeling she was never severed. I know there's been debate as to whether or not Cobel was severed or not. I always got the feeling she was never severed. I think the whole Mrs. Selvig and Cobel thing was just her going undercover in a sense. But I know that debate was out there at least before this episode. But yes, before seeing this episode and before learning that she was the creator, I also thought that was maybe her mother's chip as well, for sure. I thought it could have been hers. But now I'm starting to think that it might just be the prototype, might just be the very first one that she ever created, and that's why she was wearing it around her neck. But yeah, again, this episode definitely revealed some interesting things that makes you go back and look at some other aspects of Severance and even see those in a little bit of a different light. Like James Eagan himself, knowing that he is really one big fraud this whole time, kind of taking credit for her invention, and then going as far as to threaten her with under the threat of banishment if she ever comes out and says the truth. So it definitely paints James in an even eviler light than he was already in, I suppose. But yeah, That's what I thought. Yeah, her mother was dead. Her mother was dead pretty well back then. Her mother died as a child, so I don't think the chip could have been her mother's. And unless Cobel created this chip when she was literally a child, I don't think the timeline matches up. I get the feeling Cobel probably created this a little bit later on in life, well after her mom was dead. Although, who knows? Maybe not. Maybe she was this kind of child prodigy and she created it even younger than we think. So I could definitely see it both ways, for sure. For sure. The desolation gave Fargo vibes. Oh my God, it totally did, right? I'm so glad I'm not the only one who noticed that. I haven't watched any of the following seasons of Fargo. I only watched season 1 because season 1 was just so epic. It was so good with Billy Bob Thornton and Martin Short and Martin Sheen. It was good. Like, I really enjoyed Fargo. It was a different kind of show. It had a very weird vibe to it, but the landscape did have a very similar vibe to what I was seeing in this episode. That kind of just desolated, snowy, cold landscape. It did remind me a little bit of Fargo as well. So I'm glad I'm not the only one who it reminded of that. So that's good. We got Ruby in the house. What is up, Ruby? We got Xavier Anderson in the house as well. What is up, Xavier? Good to see you. We got Wonder Girl 60s. I thought it was a trophy from Petey. Well, I mean, could it have been, or wasn't she, or was she not wearing the Severance chip before Petey died? That's one thing I'll have to go back and check. I could have sworn she had the one on her necklace before Petey died. But if it was after Petey died, I suppose that could be possible, although it did look like she gave Petey's chip to the bodyguard for him to kind of give to the experts so they could find out how reintegration happened. So I don't think she had Petey's chip in her possession at that point. That's what leads me to believe that it was probably the prototype around her neck. I don't know if it was Petey's.
I don't think it was Petey's. She had it before Petey. She had it before Petey. So it wasn't Petey's. And you're correct. She gave Petey's up so that they could investigate. This was something different.
Yeah, I think that's a different chip. I don't think it was Petey's. Because like you said, Petey's was being worked on to see how reintegration was even cracked. So she wouldn't have had it in her possession at that point in time. It would have been in the possession of other Lumen scientists kind of studying it. So I don't think it's likely that it was Petey's. And why should she wear Petey's severance chip around her neck? I mean, it doesn't seem like there's an emotional attachment between her and Petey. It doesn't seem like she would have a sentimental value on Petey's chip. But if that was the very first chip, the prototype, that would explain the emotional connection to it and why she would feel strongly enough to wear something like that around her neck. But her wearing Petey's chip, I don't know. I think that just strikes me a little bit weird. Like, there's really no reason why she would do that. There's no kind of connection there, unless there's some secret connection between her and Petey that we don't know, which is possible, but very unlikely, I think. I think it was probably the prototype, the very first one she created, and she kept it close to her. It being Petey's just, I don't know, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But who knows? Who knows? Let's see what else we got. Yeah, Fargo. The movie was good too. I thought the movie was decent with Steve Buscemi. The movie was pretty good too. But I must say, I think I like season 1 of Fargo, the original season 1. I think I like the season maybe a little bit better than the movie, even though the movie was good. Season 1 just had such a good cast. It had a really good way of retelling that story in a serialized format that was kind of spread out and fleshed out a little bit more because it was going from a movie to a TV show where you have much more screen time to flesh these characters out. The character of the king, everything that was happening to him with Billy Bob Thornton just driving him absolutely mad by putting cow's blood in his water heater to see him turn on his shower and just get covered in blood, and it freaked him out. Like, there's so many weird things that happened in that first season of Fargo that were super messed up, but kind of funny at the same time as well. And maybe it's just because it was Billy Bob Thornton that was doing it. The guy is an absolute menace in that show. But yeah, it's a good one. I like the movie and the show both, for sure. For sure. Let's see what else we got. How long did it take? How long did it take to see Dylan and Irving again in the episode? We don't see them in a long time, and that's one of my small, not I wouldn't say gripes, but one of my small nitpicks I have with episodes like this that only follow a single character. Now, if you need all of this screen time to tell the single story of one character, I understand that. But looking back at the episode and seeing that it was only 37 minutes long, the shortest episode in Severance history, it would have been a little bit nicer for them to kind of intercut some other scenes and add it into this episode. That way it wasn't just full on nothing but the Cobel show. I get what they were going for. They wanted this to only be Cobel's story, only be her origin, only be her backstory. But with a 37-minute runtime, it just seems like there's so much more they could have done with that extra 10, 13 minutes that they usually have for the rest of the episodes, whether it's a short scene here and there of seeing what Devin and Mark are up to, where Regabi went, just like small little scenes that check in with the rest of the cast. Because that was one thing I did see some comments for. Some fans don't really, not many, but I do see some fans don't like the episodes that only follow one character and we don't see the rest of the cast. And that's not just for this show. That's a trend I've noticed for every single show I've ever covered on this channel, because almost every show does this every once in a while. They'll have just that one episode that only shows one character. And while I usually don't mind it because it's usually an interesting backstory episode, I do see some comments every once in a while that people, they're just not a huge fan of the episodes that only follow one character. So I understand that. And yes, when are we going to see Dylan, Irving, and the rest of them again? I imagine we'll see them in episode 9. I mean, we are getting ready to see the final 2 episodes. So I imagine we're going to see our whole crew next week in episode 9 for sure. For sure.
And I listened to the podcast. Sorry.
Oh yeah, nice. No, please. What was in the podcast? Was it a good one?
I know you don't listen to it, so I do the work for us. I listen to it. I listen to the podcast that they have, that they do every week after the episode, and they mentioned that it took 5 weeks, right, of filming for this episode, and I was just amazed. 5 weeks for 30-something minutes.
Crazy.
I mean, to me, it was like, oh my God, this is such a short period of time, 5 weeks, and we only got 30-something minutes. So I can empathize with the Sebies mentioning that this was just super short, and also we didn't get to see our gang. So I don't know. You say that makes sense. You would know better than I. But 5 weeks just seemed like a super long time to me. But if you say that it makes sense, then.
Well, I think it makes sense for Severance because they've often spent a lot of time on certain episodes. I guess it really depends on the TV series. It varies from show to show. You take a show like a House of the Dragon or something with a huge, big production like Rings of Power. Episodes like that sometimes take a little bit longer to film an episode. But then you have shows that are like The Office or something like that, where they can film an entire episode in a week, less than a week sometimes. So it really varies from show to show. But a show like Severance, where they do a lot of it on location, like this episode, all on location in Newfoundland, that they filmed this whole episode in Newfoundland to account for all of the very harsh and kind of beautiful landscapes we see in the background, which was very similar to episode 4. When they filmed that whole episode on location as well. These kind of episodes, I can definitely understand that, them taking a little bit longer. It's not just as simple as going to a studio and filming on a soundstage on a pre-made set. There's a lot more that goes into it. You got to get the cast there to these remote locations. You have to get all of the crew, the equipment, the filming equipment. Is sometimes some of the biggest hurdles in episodes like this is simply just getting the filming equipment on location, because it comes with a lot of very big and very expensive equipment that they have to haul from place to place. And we heard from Dan Erickson when they were filming episode 4 that the place that they were filming it in, the state forest that they were filming that episode in, was the only reason they even got permission to film there was if they agreed to leave everything untouched. They couldn't break they couldn't break a single stick off of a tree. Not a single branch could they touch. They had to leave everything exactly how they found it. So in order for them to get the camera equipment on set onto the locations, they literally had to build a giant ramp that was taller than the tree canopy. And if you look at that episode, you can see obviously it's surrounded by forest, and you see how high the tree canopy is, which was probably anywhere from 30 to 50 feet high. They had to build ramps that were taller than all of that just so they could lug the equipment from the service road into the actual woods where they were doing the filming. So it's a big undertaking when they go to film these huge episodes on location like that. So I could totally understand why this episode would take 5 weeks. Definitely could understand that. I believe episode 4 took around a month to film as well, or a little bit over a month to film too. So it makes sense for an episode like this, for sure.
Wow. I would never have known. Thank you for telling us because I was being so judgy when I heard 5 weeks. I was like, 30 minutes, 5 weeks. It doesn't make sense. But now it makes sense. Oh my God, months?
Yeah,
Wow. I
yeah,
didn't know that.
it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. Oh, and it looks like the wiki is saying it's Petey's chip into a necklace. So there we go. James Budley. And you'll always leave it to the chat to always get the right information. So yeah, I was wrong. It was Petey's chip. Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, a souvenir of sorts. I could maybe understand. I think it's a little bit weird for her to lug around Petey's chip still. But the wiki has been pretty accurate up until this point. So if the wiki says it's Petey's chip, I believe James and the wiki. Yeah, again, maybe it's just a souvenir she wanted to keep. Yeah, okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Awesome. And thank you, James, for informing me. I always love to hear, especially if I'm getting something wrong. I love, getting the correct information. So thank you, James. I very much appreciate you, my friend. This is why I love our chat. They always have the best information and all of the knowledge. Love it. Absolutely love it.
That's why I
If they
say the
succeed,
Sevies know all. They know all. They
they
are like
do.
so up
They
to
do.
date.
They are. And this is why I really do love these discussions. And this is why I always like diving into the chat and seeing exactly what you guys have to say, what your thoughts and your theories and your predictions for what is going to come are, because that's what makes these discussions fun. I mean, again, PM and I love this show just as much as everybody else does. We could talk each other's ears off for 4 hours, but there would be no point in doing a live stream at that point. The point of doing the live stream is to interact with you guys in the chat and see what you guys have to say. So I always love when we hear some information like this. So again, yeah, thank you, James. I appreciate you, my friend. Very much appreciate you. I love it. I like it. I like it. I like it. Looks so miserable. The only silver lining would be all the awesome wool clothes you could wear. There you go. Yeah, if you were into winter gear, I suppose that could be one upside for sure. For
The
sure.
fashion peach. It's all about the fashion peach, right? And talking about the fashion, in the podcast, they did talk about Miss Cobel's hair. So this whole episode
Ooh,
matched Miss Cobel's hair. And
it did.
she, the actress, was actually the person that came up with the hair. So they didn't initially have the hair in mind for her. It was the actress who said when she started reading about Miss Cobel, she said, "I think that she would have gray hair. I think that it would be long gray
Um,
strands of silvery blue hair." And so she's the one that came up with that. She also came up with the response to when Mark says, "Do you want the door closed or open?" And she says, "Both." When she says both, I know that a lot of people started like theorizing and saying, "Oh my God, Cobel said both. So that means XYZ, right?" And she says, "No, it was spur of the moment. She just improvised and she said both just to throw Mark off, right? The actor." So it's kind of nice to see that sometimes it's not as deep as we think.
Yep.
Sometimes it's just her,
Mhm.
right?
And those scenes are always super fun, aren't they? And anytime we see a scene like that, I know we saw a few of them in From and some of the other shows we talk about. It's always fun when we see the actors and actresses get to improv, get to just use their natural improv skills. Because when you're playing a character like this, actors like to get into the mindset of the character. They literally want to wear the character's skin, or at least the good actors do. The few good method actors that are left, they really like to get into the mindset of these characters. And that's exactly why. So if something comes along where there's an opportunity to maybe improvise a line or improvise an entire scene, if it enhances the scene, it's always a good thing in my opinion. I love when a good improv scene makes it into the final cut. We saw one in From that we talked a little bit about in season 3 as well, with the nurse monster. The nurse monster in season 3, of course, comes up to Boyd when he's inside the sheriff's station. She's outside. Yeah, there you go. She motions putting the gun to her head just to upset Boyd. And that was not in the script. That was something that the actress playing the nurse monster came up with on her own. And it completely worked for the scene. It made that scene that much better. I can't picture that scene without it now. So that is another interesting one that she told Mark both, just to kind of throw off Adam Scott and see how he would react. And he did. He had that kind of puzzled look on his face. I imagine that was half genuine, even if that's the case. So I like a good improv scene. That's good. That is good.
Yeah, and the Sevies in the chat are saying they're talking specifically about the kiss, right? And so in the podcast, we learned that the kiss between Hampton and Miss Cobel, after she has that very emotional moment in her mother's bed, that kiss was improvised. 88 Keys reminded us, right, that that kiss was improvised. And it was so fitting for the moment, right? They just say that Patricia said it felt right for the moment, right? And now I cannot imagine the episode without the kiss, without that bond between Hampton and Cobel, because it's after that bond that you see him deliver our favorite line: "Come tame these tempers, assholes," after he's kissed her. So it totally makes sense. But yes, 88 Keys, that was definitely improvised. She confirmed that.
And that's even better. Yeah, like, seeing a nice improvised scene like that, it always, I don't know, I like seeing that because it tells me the actor or the actress, they know the character they're playing so well that they feel comfortable going off script. They feel comfortable just doing what feels natural, being in that character. And that's good. That is the sign of a very good actor or an actress, in my opinion, or at the very least, one that really understands the character they're playing. You can't just go off script unless you're very confident in your character's skin. And yes, Patricia Arquette, I mean, and she's phenomenal. I mean, what can we say about her performance? She brings it in every episode she's in. She's got the just kind of weird flamboyance, kind of almost that kind of chaotic flamboyance to her, where you never know what she's going to do. And I thought that's why her Mrs. Selvig kind of persona was so interesting, because it was just completely polar opposite to how Cobel was. You had this kind of stern, grounded, very strategic thinker in Cobel. And then you had just this kind of neurotic, kind of all over the place Mrs. Selvig. It was an interesting contrast between the two. And yeah, Patricia Arquette, she really is. She's a phenomenal actress. And it seems like she's having a real good time in this role. So that's great. That's interesting to know that was a completely improv scene. Awesome stuff. Awesome.
But you know what? Now that you mention Miss Selvig, right? Now that you mentioned Miss Selvig, she also, so she was the person on the podcast. They usually choose one of the actors. She mentioned that Miss Selvig to Cobel was Cobel playing dress up and playing the role of what would it be like to be a normal person. So in the podcast, she mentioned that for Cobel, the character of Miss Selvig was just her trying out what it would be like to be a person without the damage, a person without the trauma. And this is who she picked. And she also made sure to mention that while Cobel started out that way, as let's pretend, let's play to be a normal person, she also started to have a lot of fun with Mark. So the cookies and
Mm,
the extra attention to Mark were because she was trying on this different skin, this skin of I'm a normal person. This is what normal people do, right? And it doesn't make sense because she was, ironically, she didn't pick a very normal person to play. But for
yeah,
Cobel, that was her escapism in a way.
it was. Yeah, it was in a sense. Like you mentioned, we hear early on in the episode that Lumen came to this town and completely mined it for its resources. The resources in this case being the actual people, the population of the town, going so far as to use child labor in something as dangerous as an ether factory, which is just wrong on so many levels. And yes, as Wonder Girl 60s brings up, Lumen kidnaps children from vulnerable parents and indoctrinates the youth into the Kier dogma. It seems like that's the case. Yeah, it seems like they do. They try to find these children when they're very young, influence them, impart their doctrine, impart their ways of thinking onto them at a very early age. That way they stick. That way these people grow up into the perfect loyal Lumen employee that Cobel was for a very long time. We saw how she was completely all in on Lumen, all in on Kier. Even Regabi referred to her as, she's Lumen through and through. She's a soldier. And we see now why, because she was taken at such a young age, and she goes to this Myrtle Eagan School for Girls, enters this Wintertide Fellowship, which is a prestigious program within the Myrtle Eagan School for Girls. And yes, apparently, James Eagan himself saw something in her at a very young age. We hear the aunt say that he saw Kier inside of her, which is giving me other kind of theories in terms of who Cobel really is and why we didn't learn anything about her father in this episode, even though I'm starting to get the feeling that James Eagan is her father. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the reveal we get later on in the season, in the finale, or maybe even episode 9, that we find out that she is the illegitimate daughter of James, half sister of Helena. I just think that would fit very well considering who Cobel was. What maybe that's why she got brought to the school in the first place. Maybe he couldn't acknowledge her publicly as his daughter, but he could keep her close because he probably recognized her genius at a very young age and wanted her to be loyal to him and to Lumen, so he could exploit that, which is exactly what he did go on to do. But yeah, that seems to be Lumen's MO. Get children when they're very young, get them to this Myrtle Eagan School for Girls, and completely indoctrinate them. And it's sad to see child labor, essentially. It's crazy.
Child
It is
labor.
crazy.
And we cannot ignore the fact that child labor is very much a reality, even in a real world. In a
Very
real
much.
world, we have child soldiers. We have
Yep.
children who are raised to become soldiers. We have children who are working on, unfortunately, right, our iPhones. We have children who are working on things that we use every day, right? In other countries. And we don't see that. However, it's very much a part of our world. And we do have child soldiers. Now, when we see the picture of Cobel, what stands out to me is that when you see
Hmm.
Cobel, she's not smiling. As a little girl with her little pigtails, she's not smiling. She's standing like a
Yeah.
soldier would. She's very rigid, very like a soldier would. And also, we noticed that with Mini Milkshake. Every time they showed a little bit of Miss Cobell, because they mentioned the Wintertide program, I kept thinking
Hmm.
about Mini Milkshake, Miss Huang.
Yes.
Where are her
Yeah.
parents? Is she going through the same thing? In the way that she behaves, she also behaves like a little soldier. So it made me
Yeah.
very sad for her. And I think that now we can deduce that the same thing is happening to her.
It looks like it. Yeah, it looks like, and that's what's interesting about this episode. In one fell swoop, we got a really deep background on Cobel, but we also inadvertently got some background on Miss Huang as well, on Mini Milkshake. Like just inadvertently, now we know where she came from. And we because we heard reference to the Wintertide Fellowship, or Milkshake saying in an episode or two ago, it's up to me whether or not you pass this fellowship. But we really weren't quite sure what that meant. A lot of us had a feeling that she went to this school, but this episode all but confirms it. And yeah, that it seems like now Mini Milkshake is following in the exact same footsteps as young Cobel once did. So the wheel keeps on turning in terms of the manipulation and the indoctrination from a very young age. Yeah, I don't know. This was I liked the episode. Again, I know it wasn't received super well by some fans, which is totally fine. Everybody, of course, is free to like and dislike any episode they want. I certainly see episodes once in a while that I'm not a big fan of. I will definitely say this was not my favorite episode. Definitely not my favorite. But I did enjoy it because I feel like it served the plot well, not only giving us the big reveal that Cobel was the inventor of this technology, but even more so, it kind of peels back the layers on Cobel, and we finally get a chance to see exactly why she is so damaged, why she is the way she is, how she's still very much dealing with grief and guilt and trauma from her mother's death, which now explains why she had her mother's hospital bracelet, her mother's breathing tank, even when she goes so far as to enter her mother's room just so she can lay in the exact same spot that her mother, spent her final moments in. It seems like Cobel wanted to connect with her mother, to feel what her mother felt in her final moments, even going so far as to hook up her breathing tube and breathe through it herself. She wanted to feel everything her mother felt. And this is guilt, not guilt, but this is trauma and grief 101, manifesting after being pushed down and suppressed for so long. It's finally coming to the surface for her because she came home and she's seeing all of these familiar things. And all of these things are bubbling to the surface for her for the first time because she's usually very cool, calm, and collected. But in this episode, she was the complete opposite. They did portray Cobel as more of a human in this episode. You actually got to see the human behind the character and not just the kind of maniacal corporate America middle management boss that is kind of stone cold. We saw the actual person of Cobel in this episode. So I did enjoy it. I like backstory episodes like this that give us a deeper understanding for a character's motivations, why they do what they do, why they act the way they act, why are they the way they are. And this episode did that in spades. Like, it really gave us a very deep and kind of ugly look at just how bad her childhood was, from childhood labor to using ether at such a young age. We see her get high with Hampton, and the first thing she says is, "I haven't done that since I was 8 years old." It's like, holy fuck, what kind of childhood did you have that you were huffing ether at 8 years old? That is crazy. So you understand, at least you get an understanding as to why Cobel is the way she is. So I enjoyed that. And again, phenomenal performance from Patricia Arquette as well. Phenomenal performance.
Yeah. And she talks about that actually. And I do see the Sebie's mentioning in the chat. In the podcast, she talks about, and I didn't know that this was an actual word. It's keening. I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly. I'm so sorry, guys. But it's keening. And she described it as, this is the word for the type of cry that a mother does when she loses a child, that a woman does when she loses somebody that is very um, close to her, right? We know all that. We all maybe have heard that gut wrenching in a movie or show sound that a mother does at the sight of losing her child. And so she said that she went into the role and she practiced the sound and it turned into a whale sound. And that's when we see the waves, right? And she said it was that gut wrenching, almost spiritual, almost cosmic sound of loss and pain. And she said that while she was doing this thing in the bed, what it signified was the adult and the baby coming together and sharing in the pain that it was to lose her mother. She also related to that because she says the actress, Patricia, she actually helped her mother, took care of her mother, was her mother's caregiver while her mother was very sick and dying, and her sister. So it was a very personal role for her because she had personal experience doing this for two people that she very much loved.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, very much so. It's like this is why kind of pushing these things down for an extended period of time isn't always the best way to deal with trauma and grief. I know sometimes it's hard to confront things like that, and the kind of person that Cobel is, kind of growing up alone, not feeling like she has any family that she could count on. She certainly can't count on her aunt, that's for sure. You get the sense as to why she felt she needed to kind of go at everything alone, and that will give you the tendency to kind of compartmentalize, to push some things down a little bit deeper than most normal people will. And sometimes it's not until you're confronted with your actual trauma face to face that it does finally bubble up to the surface. And I think we kind of saw a really good example of that with her. I liked it. I appreciated it. I love the idea she could be an anti-hero type like Walter White or Tony Soprano. Interesting. Interesting. And I guess that is the next question, isn't it? Coming out of this episode, now that we have learned everything we've learned, that is the next step. What is she going to do with this knowledge? What is she going to do with this information? What is she going to do with this absolute nuke that she has that she could drop on Lumen at any time that would completely, really, really damage their company? If not completely destroy it, very much damage it at the very least. She has actual physical, tangible evidence that proves she was the creator of the Severance chip, not James Eagan. We know James Eagan, Helena's father, has been taking all of the credit for all of these years for creating this technology and all of the benefits and the accolades that came along with it. This could be very damning for Lumen. This could be a huge, huge blow to the company if she were to just go public with actual tangible proof, especially coming from her, knowing that she does have history of being a very high up Severance employee. It's not like this information is coming from someone right off the street. This is coming from a former employee. This is what corporate whistleblowing is, essentially. So this could be very big and very damning for Lumen if this gets out to the general public that James Eagan has been lying this entire time and taking credit for Cobel's work. So I guess my question to each and every one of you in the chat, and to you as well, PM, what do you think happens from here? Where is Cobel going to go from here? We see at the end of the episode, of course, she finally answers for Devin, which was interesting. We see Devin trying to get a hold of Cobel the entire episode. She just keeps ignoring her, never picks up for her until the very end. She finally answers, and she finds out that Mark himself is undergoing reintegration, which she had a very interesting response to. Regabi hasn't killed him yet, which was pretty funny. But where do you guys see this happening? Where do you guys see this going, I guess? Do you see Cobel actually going out and seeking revenge against Lumen? Do you see her potentially teaming up with Mark and Devin? Or do you see her potentially using this information just as leverage against Lumen to maybe get her old position back? Is that something she still wants? Or do you think she's completely done with Lumen for good? Where do you see Cobel going from here?
That's a very interesting question. I think we need to follow what has happened, right? It's not so much a question of where does she want to go. It's a question of where is Lumen willing to let her go. Lumen does not want to play nice with her anymore. So it's not like she can choose to just go back to managing the Severance floor and playing nice with Lumen. They don't want that anymore. We know that Mr. Drummond has been calling her Aunt Sissy. So at this point, I don't think that she has much of an option. They're out to get her. If she wants to survive, she's going to have to rebel against the company. There is no other choice, in my mind.
I tend to agree. I think her best move right now would be to just fully commit herself to going against Lumen. Because like you said, there's no way she's ever going to just waltz back in there, get her old position back, and things are going to be hunky-dory like they were once upon a time. too much has happened. She's done too much. There's too much damage between them. Even now, where it seems like Lumen is sending people after her actively, which we see at the very end of the episode, where it seems like Hampton very bravely, stood behind to buy her time, essentially. And who knows what's going to happen to Hampton? Is he going to get killed by these Lumen thugs that are coming? Is he going to be able to make it out? Did he just sacrifice himself in order for her to get away? Just another reason why I really like Hampton. He was willing to sacrifice himself so she could get away. And I love the line, "Come tame these tempers, assholes." Love that. Love Hampton. But yeah, I guess that's the question. Where is she going to go? Hide or ask for forgiveness, or just go full on rebellion, start working with Mark, start working with Devin, maybe even team up with Regabi herself and form a very formidable team that could actually do some damage against Lumen? Because that's the thing. When you're going up against a big corporation like this, no one or two people are going to be able to make a dent. This is something that you need a group for, a group that is filled with individuals that each bring something new and useful to the table. So her teaming up with Mark and Devin and teaming up with Regabi, and who knows, maybe even if Audi Irving is actually actively working against Lumen, which many people seem to think he is, if all of these pieces can come together, then I think they could do they could put a proper dent in Lumen. One-on-one, on their own, there's not much they can do. Cobel does have this very damning evidence against Lumen, but with Lumen being as massive as they are, there's probably numerous different ways that they can neutralize this. She could go to a reporter. That reporter could be in Lumen's pocket, and she doesn't even know it, and boom, she walks into a trap. I did see a few people asking, didn't the evidence get destroyed? No, the evidence didn't get destroyed. The aunt tries to destroy the evidence. She grabs it and tries to throw it into the fire, but luckily Cobel manages to stop her and it doesn't get burnt. But we do see her grab it. We see her try to throw it into the fire, but Cobel luckily ends up saving it. So the evidence is very much still intact. It looks like it didn't even get hinged, didn't even get a little bit burnt. So the evidence is still there. But that was another thing we talked a little bit about during our after show. I mean, when you are confronting a villainous character like Cobel's aunt, the last thing you want to do is give this person the evidence that means everything while she's standing in front of a fire, nonetheless. Like, this is just like villainy 101. Never give the villain the evidence. You don't give the villain the evidence, especially if they're standing in front of a fire. So that was very risky for Cobel to even let her get her hands on it. I understand what she was trying to do in that scene. She wanted to show her, like, hey, I created this. This was my ideas, my technology, even going so far as her being the one who has programmed even some of these side programs like the Glasgow block and the overtime contingency. All of it came from her. So I get her wanting to show it to her aunt in a sense where her aunt can finally see that this is really hers. But yeah, you got to be a little more careful. You never hand the villain the evidence while they're standing in front of a fire. She got really lucky. She got lucky.
Yeah. You know what,
Yeah.
though? She did explain that in the podcast. The way that she explained that, and I
Interesting.
think it's understandable. What she said is that the interaction between Cobel and her aunt Sissy was very much one of a person that you will never be able to please. So she very
Yes.
much dislikes her aunt Sissy. However, she can't help but want to please her, want to get that love and recognition from her aunt Sissy. And so this was Cobel almost acting as a child, wanting to get some sort of recognition from Sissy, wanting to hear those words that she has been waiting for, like, I love you, or I see that you did this, or I'm sorry, right? Words that some people will spend their whole lifetime waiting for from that specific person. And of course, she's never going to get that. But when she explains it that way, it makes a lot of sense. Why she would show her the notebook. She's hoping, in a way, even though we all know that that's not how it works, right? She's hoping to get the recognition and the love that she has always wanted from her aunt Sissy.
That makes sense. That definitely makes a little bit of sense. Even though she doesn't like this aunt, even though she kind of probably really despises her, there is always that feeling of wanting approval, of wanting credit for what you've done, especially wanting credit in the eyes of someone who has always been disapproving of you. You kind of want to prove them wrong in a sense. So that does make sense that she would want her to see it with her own eyes. Just next time, make sure she's not standing in front of a fire would be my suggestion. But no, that does make perfect sense. It does make sense, 100%. And this makes sense as well, as Gabrielle says, Cobel is interested in the outcome of her technology, so I could see her helping Mark to see her project through. And that, I think, is why she, at the end of the episode, when Devin tells her that Mark is reintegrating, she instantly says, "Tell me everything," as I think Xavier put it in the chat best. Tell me everything. Exactly. That's exactly where her head is now. She created this technology, and not only did she create it, but when she did create it, she was under the assumption that reintegration wasn't even possible. So now that she knows a different aspect has been unlocked and she didn't unlock it herself, yes, that is going to make her very interested. She is going to want to see this through. So I do 100% agree with this. I do see her going to Devin and going to Mark and working with them to maybe even improve the reintegration process. We know that Cobel kind of cracked reintegration, but she definitely has not perfected it. It definitely seems like it is still a very dangerous procedure. And if anyone can take that dangerous procedure, refine it to the point where it becomes a little bit safer, it is Cobel. I mean, she is perfectly suited to help Regabi really crack reintegration. So I do kind of hope to see her, Mark, Devin, and even Regabi working together in these next 2 episodes, or maybe even in the finale. I think that would be an interesting progression for her character. She's finally realizing that Lumen has used her for all of these years. She's finally kind of breaking free of that Lumen brainwashing that she has been under for Lord knows how long. Now I think it's just a natural progression for her character to, yes, go to Mark, help with the reintegration, and see this thing through. And maybe even try to put a stop to Cold Harbor if she can, because she knows what Cold Harbor is at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, does she have a choice? That is the question.
Yeah.
Does she have a choice? Would the company even want her back? At this point, she's very dangerous to Lumen. So I think that she is at a point where there is no other choice but to work with the rebellion. I mean, what else can you do? I don't imagine that Lumen will welcome her with open arms and just say, like, come back and we'll give you your job. She has proven to be dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the case. I think that's the case. I do think she's done with Lumen, and I do agree with you guys in the chat as well, saying she's kind of done with Lumen. She already refused the second chance with Lumen. I do agree. I think that is probably where her mindset is right now. And this as well, I think she's done with Lumen, but that doesn't necessarily mean we can trust her. And I think that is probably the best way to handle Cobel going forward. If I was Mark, if I was Devin, that would probably be the exact mindset I would be in. Yes, she might be done with Lumen, but that doesn't necessarily mean I can trust her now. The enemy of my enemy isn't always my friend. It doesn't always work that way. So I think that would be a safe mindset to approach Cobel in. Just, yeah, she's different. She might want revenge against Lumen, but don't let your guard down around her. You never know what she's capable of, for sure. I don't believe Cobel and Milchek will flip. It's going to be one or the other. And looking at it this way, I mean, I really wanted it to be Milchek, but it looks like it might actually be Cobel. Yeah, I mean, Milchek seemed like he almost kind of doubled down this season after getting that negative performance review. It seems like it made him only more loyal to Lumen, to the point where he was willing to completely try and just reprogram the way that he speaks just to become a better boss in the eyes of Lumen. So while I do still think a redemption arc for Milchek is possible, I don't think it's coming anytime soon. I do think we are going to see Cobel go down this road, though. I think Cobel has finally reached the point where she is just done with Lumen. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean we can trust her, but it does mean that she might become at least a little bit more predictable in terms of what she's going to do next. Again, if you know somebody's motivations, if you know a character's motivations and how they think, it becomes a lot easier to anticipate their moves. And right now, it seems like she wants to get back at Lumen. She wants to right the wrongs that have been done to her. And to know that she's been under threat of banishment this entire time, that if she says anything about her being the real one who created this technology, they would ban her. I mean, I feel like she's finally waking up and realizing that she was brainwashed essentially from the time she was a child to doing child labor in an ether factory, to being sent to the Wintertide program, to being sent to the severed floor. I think she's just finally waking up and realizing, shit, I have been brainwashed by this company. I have been loyal to this company for decades. And what have they given me in return? They threw me out on the street, which is essentially what they did. And speaking of them throwing her out on the street, I think it paints this interaction between Cobel and Helena in a much, much different light now. Now I think I totally understand why she just completely walked away. It could simply just be because of what Helena said. We hear Helena say to Cobel in their previous meeting when Cobel is first considering maybe coming back and then leaves last minute. We hear Helena say to Cobel, I think you have overestimated your contributions to this company and your blessings. And if I was Cobel and I heard that said to me by the daughter of the man who stole my life's work, yeah, that would be the final straw. That would be the camel that breaks, that would be the straw that breaks the camel's back. That would be the point of no return for me. Hearing Helena say to her, to me of all people who created this severance technology, that I am overestimating my contributions to the company, yeah, all bets are off at that point. Loyalty out the window. Now I am out for Lumen blood.
It makes sense. And also, let's remember that in this interaction, she had something really interesting to say to Helena. She said, I worked hard for everything I ever got. I wasn't born into it. So she's already seeing, like, you don't know who I am. You don't know the work that I put in to get to the point to where I'm at. You didn't do anything except you were born to the right people. And when you put it, this picture perfectly illustrates the theory that a lot of Sebies, and I know you kind of mentioned this too, that they might be sisters. And the contrast, if they do end up being sisters, the contrast between the sisters, that one gets everything just because she was able to be recognized as an Eagan, and the other one gets to do all of the work but will never get recognition. And so this picture kind of makes me think, imagine if they're sisters. The vitriol of it all.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. It is. And I will not be surprised if that is the case. I mean, we get this whole very interesting backstory into Cobel's life, her childhood. Yet the one thing the show doesn't even give us a hint about is who her father was. Who is her father? But we do learn that, of course, James Eagan took an interest in her at a very young age, says he saw Kier inside of her. I mean, I do feel like that is very much foreshadowing for the reveal that she will be James Eagan's daughter, her illegitimate daughter. And yes, that would ultimately make Cobel and Helena sisters or half sisters, however way you'd like to put it. They would be related. They would both have the same father. And that's kind of where I see this going. I feel like that's the reason why they didn't give us any info on who Cobel's father was, because they're saving that reveal probably for a later date, maybe towards the end of the season, or maybe that's something they'll save for season 3. I don't know. But at this point, I am not going to be surprised at all if it is revealed that James Eagan is her father. I just feel like it's they've kind of set it up perfect for that to be the case, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of set it up perfect.
And how will Helena react? What does that mean? Because if James Eagan is her father, then that means that Helena is not the person who is up for the title of CEO. It really should be Miss Cobel.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. If Cobel is the oldest daughter, essentially, then yeah, she, maybe she will feel some type of way where she feels like where Helena might feel threatened even, that Cobel is a potential replacement for me. yes, it could kind of heighten the already damaged relationship between those two, as you mentioned, the vitriol of these two, sweet vitriol, as it were, not so sweet in the long run, I guess. But yeah, no, I could totally see that. I could totally see this being a reveal where they're heading. That James Eagan was indeed the father of Cobel. Helena finds that out, and yes, it's going to cause some very interesting problems between Helena and Cobel. I mean, I already feel like they're at the point of no return, as you mentioned. I feel like there's already no going back to Lumen for Cobel. That would just seal the deal and just add that much more damage between them than already was, which would maybe make her even more inclined to act against Lumen. But yeah, it's very interesting that they didn't touch on anything about her father, and I do get the feeling that's where they're heading. I get the feeling that's where they're heading. She is going to be the daughter of good old James Eagan, but who knows? Cobel deserves to be the head of Lumen. Interesting. Yeah, I saw a few people saying that earlier, where she will eventually. Some people think she will eventually go against Lumen, take Lumen down, and then take Lumen over for herself, become the new CEO of Lumen. That could be an interesting turn of events. I mean, where she does all of this just to end up right back at the top of Lumen and kind of overseeing this evil company at the end of the day. I mean, it certainly would not be a redemption arc for her at that point. Yes, she would get her her revenge against Lumen, but she certainly would not find redemption that way if she just becomes the next CEO and just continues the cycle of everything that this company has been doing to people, to children for decades. So while it might get her revenge, it's not going to get her redemption. But maybe she's not after redemption. That's the thing. Cobel might not want redemption. She might only want revenge, which could totally be the case. And you can understand that. You can definitely understand that. Cobel, Water Lumen drop versus Helena Blood Water drop. Yeah, I mean, maybe we're going to see a little showdown. Helena versus Cobel. That could be very, very interesting. And we don't know anything about Helena's mother either. That is another good point, Neely. Yes, we have not learned anything about who Helena's real mother is. That's another thing that the show has left suspiciously blank and absent. We haven't even gotten a single hint as to who Helena's mother is. So that is also another point. I mean, could we it all be kind of brought full circle where Helena's mother is Cobel's mother, where they do share the same mother and the same father? Could that potentially be a possibility? I don't know. But yeah, there's got to be some kind of reason why they haven't revealed Helena's mother, just like they haven't revealed Cobel's father. Maybe it is one closed circle. I don't know.
It makes me think of the really strange way that Sissy explains Cobel's mother's room. She says that room cannot be open until everybody that knew her rests with Kier. Why? Why can the room be open until everybody that actually knew her and her story? That's what it makes me think. If you know her, then you know who she is, you know her story, you know why she's important. Why can't the room be open until everybody is dead? Is it because
that was one thing,
right? It was so strange. So
yeah, I don't know. That was one thing that was a little bit strange. I mean, was it just this kind of part of this dogmatic view that Sissy has towards Lumen, this kind of weird blind loyalty to the company, where that's some kind of Eagan Kier thing that they do? I didn't know. That was one thing that the show left very ambiguous. They didn't even hint as to why Sissy wanted the room sealed until everyone that knew her was sitting with Kier. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Man, I don't know. It would be funny. All the board members had been huffing ether for the last 50 years and are practically brain dead. That would be an interesting turn of events, if nothing else, for sure. What's this revolving thing? That's one thing we're not quite sure what the revolving is. We hear James Eagan say to Helena at the end of season 1, or what he thinks is Helena. It's really Helly at the time. And he says, "One day you will sit with me at my revolving." And that always struck me as the revolving might be literally a revolving from one CEO to the next, where James Eagan steps down and Helena Eagan takes over, or James Eagan dies and Helena Eagan takes over as the new CEO. The revolving always kind of struck me as the passing of the torch from one Eagan to another. That's kind of how I took it, but we don't know for sure what the revolving is. But I think it might be the passing of the torch in a sense. Who knows?
It
What
makes me
about you? What do you
think
think about
of
the
like,
revolving?
yeah, sorry. It makes me
No, I'm
think
sorry.
of it makes me think of like switching bodies, right? Because all of the
Ah,
Sebies, a lot of us are thinking that the chip, the microchip, is helping them live forever by being able to insert the chip in different bodies and bodies that are maybe younger, right? More able. And the revolving makes me think of him being put into another body, kind of like
ah,
Frankenstein. And we've talked about this, right? Um, that's what it makes me think of revolving, changing, morphing.
yeah, mm, yeah. That's kind of the vibe I got from it too. Yeah, I kind of got that vibe from it. James Buckley says revolving is when they take your brain out and put electrodes in it and put it in a jar and you become a board member. Maybe that is the revolving. James, you might be right, my friend. You might be right. As crazy as the show is, you may in fact be right. Who knows? That could be the revolving for sure. Lumen would kill Cobel before letting her take over. And I do agree with you, Howdy. I mean, this is Lumen we're talking about. They're incredibly powerful. They have so many resources at their disposal, so much manpower. There is no way they would be giving up without a fight. If Cobel wanted to take Lumen down, there's just no way she can do it alone, even armed with the evidence that she has. She's still only one person versus a multi conglomerate corporation that spans the entire globe. It's not enough. It is not enough. One grenade in your hand, one nuke in your hand is not enough against such a foe. You need backup. You need more than just this. So if she does have any kind of inkling where she does want to take over, there's no way she's going to be able to do it alone. She is going to need some help, even with that evidence. Lumen is just way too big, way too big. I could only see her redeemed if there's a deeper, more altruistic use for Severance. And that's an interesting thing that I was wondering as well. Why exactly did Cobel create the Severance program in the first place? I have to imagine she didn't create it just to create workers. Maybe she did, who knows? But did she have some other kind of method, some other kind of goal in mind for creating this technology? Maybe ultimately to try and help her mother. We know that her mother was dying of a severe illness. Was this to try and ease her mother's pain? Did she kind of have some kind of hope to use this in a more humane way? That is a good question. Why did she create the Severance chip in the first place? Was it solely just to serve Lumen? Was it solely just to create these innie outies? Or did she have, again, a more altruistic reason behind it? That would be an interesting thing to find out. What was her motivation for creating the technology in the first place?
I mean, we were talking about this in the Discord. Sebie, so if you haven't joined Jeremy's Discord, please do because we have amazing conversations. Um, we were talking about how Cobel was a child worker, right? She was a victim of child labor. And because she was a very intelligent child, there is the possibility that maybe in all of her pain and all of her struggle, she didn't invent this for because she's just a child, right? She wasn't thinking about capitalism or about exploitation. She was thinking about this is such a horrible way to live. This is such a horrible way for children to spend their day that maybe she was trying to help the other children. So the children that worked with her, um, maybe there's a way that I can create something where we don't have to remember everything that we go through. We don't have to remember that we are working for 12 hours a day and we don't have to suffer
Yes.
the trauma of what is happening in our childhoods because she's just a little child creating this sort of technology. She wasn't thinking about finances, capitalism, workers. Maybe it was just a way of trying to help the children so that they wouldn't have to drug themselves in order to forget, because they were already doing this. They were already drugging themselves in order to forget. So maybe she thought, I could make something that can make us forget what we're going through without having to use a substance.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. Again, I mean, everything that is going on in the show, I feel like every time I get a handle on what's happening, an episode like this comes around, and I kind of have to completely reevaluate certain ways that I view some of these aspects of the show. And this episode definitely did that. It definitely made me reevaluate not just how I see Cobel, but how you see Lumen and how you see the Severance program itself. So I guess that is an interesting question. Was there another goal? And I think what you said is probably a really good answer. And I think I like that theory more than anything else, that maybe she did have a little bit more of an altruistic goal behind her. Maybe this was to try and ease the suffering and ease the pain of having these poor children be forced to work in this ether factory. Maybe Severance was originally built for the workplace, but it was a more noble goal at first, as opposed to exploitation, how Lumen uses it. I could totally see that being the case. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Man.
the Sebies are asking about the goats, Jeremy.
Right.
What now that now that we know this, like, what about the goats? What's going on with the goats? How can we put this together and make sense of where the goats come in?
Exactly. One thing we still have not even the slightest hint of: what exactly are the goats for? Why does Lumen have a goat farm on the severed floor? And why do they have severed workers tending to these goats? What is happening with these goats that is so classified, that is so secret, that is so important, that it warrants being on the severed floor? Obviously, they're not just raising goats to raise them. They're doing something. I do tend to lean a little bit towards the animal experimentation, but which is horrifying to think that they're experimenting on these baby goats or these full-grown goats, because we do hear that one guy say, you know, she's not old enough yet. No, go away. You can't take her. She's not old enough yet. It's not time. These goat people seem to have a very deep and emotional connection to these goats, and it seems like they don't want to give them up. And that leads me to believe that they know what's happening to these goats when they do give them up, and it is not pretty. But no, I have no idea. Chat, we are all ears. You guys come up with some of the best ideas and the best theories. What do you guys think the goats are truly for? What is Lumen doing with these freaking goats? I mean, do you have any ideas, PM, as to what could be going on with these goats outside of some animal experimentation or something nasty?
Well, I was looking at the intro trailer. I was going frame by frame and looking at the intro trailer. And there is a section in the intro trailer where Mark is running, and Mark's body gets put into a goat head that then turns into a human. So it
Oh,
made me think,
geez.
could yeah, there's that part in the trailer. It made me think, are they taking people's microchips and putting them into goats to see if, like, the innie in the microchip can live in a goat body?
Oh my God. Oh my God. That
Why
would
you
be
would want
nutty. That
that?
would be, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But again, why does Lumen do half of the weird shit they do to begin with? You know, like that would seem right up their alley. Yeah, maybe that's the case, or maybe they're using these poor goats as a way to kind of test the severance chip before they put it inside a human. They want to make sure it's fully functioning. They don't want to put a malfunctioned chip inside a human until they know it works on a goat, which would be very weird to choose a goat of all things. If you're going to do something like that, you would think you would want an animal whose DNA is a little closer to humans, like cows, for instance. Cows and humans share a lot of DNA markers. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. What is up with the goats, guys? What is up with the goats? Goats predate the chip, right? That's an interesting question, All City. I'm not quite sure how far back the goats go. We know that the Severance chip has been available to the public for 12 years, which means it's probably been developed for many years even before that. But yeah, when exactly did the goats come around? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure which one predates the other. I don't think we've been given a hint, have we?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think that we know the answer to that. But I know that we have 2 episodes left, Sevi, so we need to start thinking about the goats. We need to figure this out.
We got to figure out what's up with these goats. I think the goats do predate the chip. It's possible. It's certainly possible. You never know. Never know. Yeah, I agree with the takeaway that the child worker pain and then extended to transferring consciousness when her mom got sick and the Eagans took it. Yeah, I could definitely see something like that. Again, I like that idea. I like the idea of her creating it for a more noble goal in the beginning, where she's trying to ease the suffering of herself and everybody else that is forced to work in this ether factory, these child, servants, essentially. Yeah, I could totally see that being the case. And yes, Lumen gets aware of this technology, sees what Cobel has created, and they instantly see all of the opportunities, all of the uses that they could apply this technology for. And yes, the Eagans take it. And she was raised to believe that all knowledge, that Kier's knowledge is meant to be shared with all. So of course she's going to go right along with the program. She's going to listen to whatever Jane Eagan says because she's indoctrinated at that point. But yeah, maybe she did have a more noble goal. I think it's an interesting idea to know that she originally came from a place of caring, but eventually evolved into this kind of cold character that Lumen turned her into, that the Eagans turned her into. It's it's a sad state to see everything she's been through. Yeah, goats probably test subjects to see if goats turn to Kier. Maybe goat people. Yeah, is there actual goat people going along? I don't know. And I thought maybe those were goat bones all around Sissy's house. Ooh, interesting, Scotty. Interesting. Goat bones around Sissy's house. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. I think I missed that. I missed bones outside of her house. I'm gonna have to check that out for sure. For sure. Gemma loves farms. Lumen makes axes and raises goats. Gemma gets forced to kill goats in Cold Harbor. Oh, geez. I hope
Oh
not.
my God.
Oh, my God. I certainly hope not. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. The goats are for Lumen's milk company. Could it just be that simple? Someone said in the chat earlier that they think the goats are just one giant red herring. And I forget who said it. I think it might have been James. And yeah, I mean, that could potentially be the case. Sometimes shows do just throw massive red herrings into shows every once in a while just to throw us off. So yeah, could it? I mean, I feel like that would be such an anticlimactic moment if, after all of these goat theories, after all of us wondering what the heck is up with these goats, only to find out that it's literally just the Lumen dairy product, nothing more. Like, that would be so disappointing, no? Like, I would be very unfulfilled if I heard that.
Well, I thought that you were so worried about the goats that you didn't want them to suffer. So that would be a good thing. That would be a good thing if it's just um they said the eggs, the deviled eggs, but I didn't know that goats make eggs. A lot of people were theorizing that that's where the deviled eggs come from. No, unfortunately, I think that the goats are being used for experimentation on the goats before they experiment on human bodies.
Mm-hmm. I get the sense that they're probably being used for something nefarious like that. As much as I want to hope that these poor goats aren't being tortured and experimented on, this is Lumen at the end of the day. I mean, they're not going to hesitate to experiment on some goats. As above, so below with the goats, as Xavier says. Exactly. We know one of the tempers in the waffle party had a goat mask. Indeed, we do see that one of the 4 tempers is indeed a is depicted as a goat. I believe I have all 4 of them here somewhere. Here we go. Here we have the 4 tempers, and yes, we see a goat is a depiction of one of them. We see woe back here, we see frolic here, we see dread here, and I believe malice is the goat. Yeah, I mean, the goats have been very prominent on the show ever since the beginning. And one thing I even noticed in an episode in season 1, and next time you guys see any scenes at Devin and Ricken's house, Ricken has so much goat memorabilia all over his house. It's super subtle, but if you take a look in the background at Ricken and Devin's house, whether it's on a fireplace, on a windowsill, on a shelf, you'll start to notice there's tons of goat memorabilia at Ricken's house. They're sprinkling goats all over the place on this show. So that's what leads me to believe that it's not just simply a red herring, that there is going to be a very specific purpose for these goats. And I don't know, but part of me gets the feeling that it's going to be one of those things that none of us saw coming, that all of the goat theories ended up being completely wrong. Like, that would be an interesting outcome, I feel, if we just didn't see it coming at all. And it's a little bit more complicated than them simply just experimenting on these goats. But who knows? One thing's for sure, the goat symbolism is all over this freaking show, everywhere, even in Ricken's house, which some people pointed out that they think Ricken is even more sus after seeing all the goats in his house. And that's another thing. Ricken has so many theories surrounding him. Like, it's interesting to see all of the cool and kind of trippy fan ideas that have been kind of sprouting around Ricken. Who is Ricken really? What purpose is Ricken ultimately going to share? Is he more than just this kind of bumbling author, this new world kind of author that has this different take on life? Or is there something darker to Ricken? Is there something Ricken hasn't really disclosed yet? Are we going to find out that Ricken has a darker side, that he has different goals, that this whole persona of his is just a means to an end? I don't know. I like all the Ricken theories that are out there. There's some really good, interesting Ricken theories. Some people are even theorizing that Ricken will eventually be the body that Kier gets put into. And I don't know how, but the Ricken theories are super interesting. And just because he is such a weird character, so out there, I don't know. I think it makes his character that much more fitting for some of these big, wild, tinfoily theories, because he's Ricken. I mean, he's Ricken at the end of the day. I love Ricken. But yeah, I don't know what's up with him. I don't know what is up with Ricken. Ricken wrote all the Lumen books. Maybe he did, James. Maybe Ricken has been Lumen through and through this entire time. But what do you guys think? And you as well, PM. Do you think Ricken is just Ricken, the Ricken that we see? Or do you think there's something hidden about Ricken that hasn't been revealed yet?
I know that I have seen the theories, and the Sevies do know all. However, in this one instance, I would disagree, because I just don't want Ricky Ricken to be to be the bad guy. He is. A lot of people were mentioning how we didn't have any levity to the last episode, and Ricken is the
Yes.
levity to the show. Every time that Ricken is on screen, it's something that's interesting and funny, and I really like his character. So I would hope that the show doesn't turn Ricken's character into the bad guy or somebody that has been working with Lumen all along. However, we can't ignore the fact that he is Lumen now. They did make a deal with him to rewrite his book and to brainwash the innies. So we can't ignore that. However, I would like Ricken to remain the levity, the comedy to the show. Um, will it be that way? Probably not. This is Severance. They tend to show us something beautiful or funny, and then they just destroy it, right? So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, they do have a habit of doing that to us, don't they? Where they'll present something as this, and then we find out a few episodes later, wow, it's completely different, and it's that. Because yeah, like you said, there isn't a whole lot of levity in the show. Like when we look at actual good comedic moments, good moments of levity, they usually always come from either any Mark or Ricken, mostly Ricken. Like you said, Ricken is the levity of the show. He's the heartbeat of the levity of Severance. He really is. And his whole relationship with Devin, the whole weird little Ricken cult that he has going on, like every one of those scenes were such, it was all such good levity in season one. It gave you a chance to kind of take a breath, have a laugh, amidst all of the kind of dark and serious things that happen everywhere else. So yeah, the show would be missing something if all of a sudden Ricken did turn dark, if Ricken was this kind of secret, nefarious character. I don't think I would enjoy that direction for his character because he is a great source of comedic levity. And he's just a great character as he is. I feel like he's already interesting enough that you don't need to make him more than what he already is. He's already one of the most fascinating characters on the show. You don't need to kind of make him dark, I don't think. So I'm with you there. I hope that's not the route they go with Ricken. Let's keep Ricken innocent, guys. Let's keep Ricken innocent. Yeah, I think Ricken deserves to be a demigod. I'm right there with you, Art. Ricken deserves to be a demigod. I mean, the guy he's Ricken. He's the You Are You guy. And that's why I love the aspect of season one when Milchick accidentally or forgets to, or maybe even purposely leaves Ricken's book in one of the conference areas, and the Innies find it and they start reading it. And they start learning all of these Ricken-esque lessons about life. They start living their life according to Ricken's doctrine. Like it's almost like they traded the Kier handbook for the Ricken handbook. And I love that at season one, towards the end of season one, when we see Innie Mark confronted with Ricken in person. Like he's so starstruck, he's so happy. He's like, I read your book, it taught me so much. And here Ricken is thinking, he's like, okay, Mark, I know you're just making a joke, not knowing that this is really the Innie who worships him, which is exactly what Ricken has always wanted. He's always wanted that recognition for his work. He's always wanted the approval of Mark, where Mark is always kind of making fun of him. So I just thought that was a really interesting aspect that they added into season one, having the Innies find Ricken's book, having it have such a huge impact on their development, because in season one the Innies were essentially children, and they still are in a sense. They're still essentially very young, learning so much about what life really is. There's so much about the outside world that they'll never get to experience, but they can learn about it through the eyes and through the words of Ricken. And I just love that. I thought that was a very interesting aspect of season one, where Ricken ends up becoming the kind of the new Lumen to the Innies, where they trade the Kier handbook again for the You Are You book. And I think they upgraded. I would rather read Ricken's book than the Lumen handbook any day of the week. What about you guys, and you as well, PM? I mean, if you had to choose one of these books to read, would you really choose the Lumen handbook over the You Are You book? I'm going You Are You every time. What about you?
Oh, you know me. I am a proud and happy member of the Ricken cult. We know that he sold out, but we don't know if he's going to return, right, to lead us to salvation. I am a proud member of the Ricken cult. And you cannot convince me that that line that Mark said to Holly of "we shared vessels" didn't come from Ricken.
Yes.
I know that came from Ricken. So I am a proud member of the You Are You cult. um I like him. I hope that they don't make the character dark. However, we know Severance. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of dreading what will become of Ricken now that Lumen has signed him as somebody that will be writing literature for the Innies. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's inevitable.
Maybe, and I think that's why it was so disappointing for some fans and for even Devin herself when she comes home and she sees Ricken just completely, hypnotized by Natalie, just completely playing along to the beat of her drum, to the point where he's willing to kind of cast aside all of his beliefs. He's willing to start preaching the exact opposite of what he really believes in just to get that Lumen paycheck. And yeah, it did, I did not expect that from Ricken. Ricken did always strike me as someone who is, yes, a little bit weird, a little bit eccentric, a little quirky, but he did always strike me as someone who genuinely believed in what he was saying. Like he actually did believe in what he was preaching. So to see him so easily be willing to kind of push that aside just for this big Lumen paycheck, it did strike me a little bit as odd. Now, again, he is an author at the end of the day, and authors always want their work to be revered and applauded. They always want approval for their work. And I think maybe even more than the paycheck, it was the idea of his book being just completely blown up worldwide. If you have someone like Lumen behind you and they're publishing your book, obviously this book is going to be read by millions of people all around the world. So I think the idea of that was probably more enticing than the actual money for Ricken, maybe. But it was a little interesting to see that he was willing to kind of compromise his beliefs to achieve that goal. Because again, he always seemed very genuine that he believes in the things he's saying. But I don't know, maybe not. Maybe everybody gets tempted. Who knows? Maybe everybody gets tempted at some time. Who knows? But I do know we have a super chat from Kristan Unpronounceable. Thank you so much, Kristan. Everyone watching, please give the video a like. Well, thank you so much for that, my friend. That is very much appreciated. Yeah, I usually never remember to say, hey, like the video. I feel like people either like it or they don't. I try not to ask for likes. I just want people to have a good time and join into the conversation. But I very much appreciate that, my friend. Thank you so much for the 5. And thank you for the prompt on the like button. I very, very much appreciate it. Appreciate all the support from each and every one of you. You guys have been super supportive of our Severance content this year, and that has been so awesome to see. Very much appreciate it. Very, very much appreciate it. Let's see what else we got. I love how long it took for Rick to figure out where to put his book on Mark's driveway. Yes, Art. Yes, that was one of my favorite scenes of season 1. And that scene, I feel like if you were going to show anybody who doesn't watch Severance and you wanted them to get a feel for who Ricken is as a character, all you need to do is show them that scene. That is the only scene you need to show them for anybody to see exactly who Ricken is, the kind of person that he is. That scene perfectly encapsulates his personality, I feel. And it was such an kind of an innocent and kind of endearing kind of scene where he wants Mark's approval so bad. He wants Mark to like his work so much that he's even trying to make the perfect impression in terms of where Mark sees the book on his doorstep, leaning on the door or leaning up against the wall. Like, it was such an endearing scene.
It really was, guys. But also, we need to remember, if you happen to read the You Are You, the You Are book that Apple released, Ricken does kind of go into the history that he has with his brother in law. He goes into the history of Mark saying some really mean and harsh things to Ricken. Once upon a time, during the first couple of weeks after Gemma's death, Mark told Ricken, everybody laughs at you. As soon as you exit the room, they laugh at you. So this is after that. So Ricken has held on to that. Ricken has held on to the fact that Mark doesn't really like him. That's why he has such trouble presenting his book, and that's why he's so self-conscious about it. It's a little heartbreaking, right? He just wants Mark to like him. We even see it in the previous episode where they're having dinner with Gemma, and Ricken tells Mark, I don't think that we spend enough time together. And Mark says, I think we spend enough time together. So you see him, he just wants his brother in law to like him. Yeah, and how can that be a bad thing, right? Like, how can it be a bad thing to want your brother-in-law to like you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, he wants his approval. I mean, it's his brother-in-law. It's someone that he looks up to. It's someone that he he wants to be his friend. He wants that brotherly kind of quality back and forth with him. He wants that, which again is totally understandable. To want a family and a loved one's approval, especially on something that is as important to Ricken as his book is. It's his life's work. Nikki says, didn't Ricken sort of throw earning the money into his wife's face? Like he felt he had no choice financially and holding her partially responsible. It seemed like there was a degree of that maybe, because yes, when he was confronted with it, that is one of the things that he said to Devin, that he wanted to be able to give her this life, this kind of gift. So the financial struggle was a little bit of a motivation for him to accept the deal. I do think there wasn't definitely part of it for sure, absolutely. Maybe Ricken hid something in Who You Are new book for ICMDR Takedown Lumen. Oh, like some kind of hidden message, maybe. Okay, interesting. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe he's secretly trying to teach the innies how to rebel. That could be a very, very interesting turn of events. We know that he is actively creating a version of his book that is meant solely for the innies to read, which is why Lumen is having him make all of these kind of changes to it so they can keep the innies loyal to Kier, most likely. But yeah, what if he was able to slip in some kind of hidden message there that could show the innies who Lumen really is and give them the courage that they would need to kind of rebel at some point or recognize that they're maybe working for the wrong team. Absolutely. Can't wait until it's Dragon Time in Jeremy Land again. Yes, Faith and Repentance, we are getting super close now. We are getting super close to diving back into all things A Song of Ice and Fire. I have a few Song of Ice and Fire videos I'm working on right now, a few House of the Dragon Season 3 predictions videos. I did get some very interesting information today from one of my contacts. And it's interesting. It is interesting in terms of some of the things that they are going to be doing in Season 3, how many big moments they are fitting into Season 3. It's ambitious, to say the least, especially with them only doing 8 episodes. Very ambitious in terms of what they're going to be trying for Season 3 of House of the Dragon. And they have a lot to make up for, unfortunately. Season 2 wasn't the best received. A lot of fans did not like Season 2, and myself included. I wouldn't say I didn't like it, but I had a lot of problems with it. I did have a lot of problems with it, and that's just me being honest. I think the first 4 episodes of Season 2 were pretty good. I think it started off on a decent note, but the second half of Season 2 really went off the rails like bad. A lot of people were very disappointed with Season 2. So they do have a little bit of goodwill to regain, to retake. They got to gain that goodwill back. And the only way they'll ever be able to do that is if they get back on track and deliver a product that people like. So it'll be interesting. Again, it looks like they're planning a very ambitious season for Season 3. Will they be able to pull it off or not? I don't know. But I do have some inside information that I will be putting out in a video pretty soon. So the A Song of Ice and Fire content will definitely be returning as we get closer and closer to really getting into the filming stage for Season 3, and as we get closer and closer to Night of the Seven Kingdoms beginning, which will also be coming the beginning of this summer, the latest, I'm hearing. So yeah, we got some A Song of Ice and Fire to dive into, guys. Ricken is a shambolic rube. That is another one of my favorite phrases from Severance. Hearing Milchick say that, and I was just so kind of surprised that any Mark would even know what a shambolic rube is. And then I remembered, oh, that's right. He read Ricken's book. He must have gotten that from Ricken's book. A shambolic rube? That is definitely something Ricken would say. Like, there's no way any Mark would know that if it wasn't for Ricken, right? So you see the influence of this book everywhere on the innies.
You do. And I love it. I'm just wondering now that he's rewriting the book, how and if, I'm sure they will, but how the innies will react to reading the book that they know and seeing that the message has been changed, to being kind of let down by this prophet that they believed in, right? Oh,
That's a very good
Justin,
point.
thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. Justin White gifted 5 memberships to the Ice and Fire community. Thank you so much, Justin, for the gift of the 5 memberships. That is very much appreciated. Looks like Peach is now a member. Nikki is now a member. KS is now a member. Niecy Smith is now a member. And Matt Gilbert is also now a member. Welcome one, welcome all. Thank you again so much, Justin, for the gift of the 5 memberships. And of course, anyone who did receive one of the memberships, you all have complete access to our custom Severance emojis that you can use at any time in the chat. Feel free to dive into those. And of course, anyone who is a member of the channel can also make requests at any time you want for new Severance emojis or new emojis in general. It doesn't have to be Severance. If you guys want a specific emoji made and you're a member of the channel, I will always try to accommodate all of the requests because the emojis are for the members at the end of the day. So I want them to be emojis that you guys want to have. So if anybody ever has any requests for any new emojis you want, definitely leave their suggestions in the comment section after the stream ends, and that's usually the best place I'll be able to see them at. Sometimes I can't see everything that happens in the live chat, especially when there's almost 150 people in here like tonight, which is so awesome. Can't thank each and every one of you enough for joining us. But after the stream ends, the regular comment section opens up like any other video. Anybody who's a member of the channel, leave your suggestions there, and I will definitely get the custom emoji made if it's possible for me to make it, of course. But thank you again so much, Justin White, for the gift of the 5 memberships. Absolutely incredibly generous, my friend. Incredibly generous.
Yes! Do it, Seth!
Yes.
I love that.
Do it.
Do it, Seth.
Do it, Seth. Yeah, that might be my new super chat / membership donation celebration clip. I used to use the whoa clip, but I'm looking for a different one now. It might be that one. That might be the one, or maybe.
Marshmallows are for team players, Dylan. They don't just hand them out.
I
love Mini Milkshake's face right at the end of that milkshake. He is giving the side eye, and Mini Milkshake is doing it right back. She's like following his lead. I love that clip.
Love it. It really is a good one. It really, really is a good one for sure. For sure. Yeah, awesome stuff, guys. Awesome stuff. I did see somebody earlier in the chat mention if we have talked about this shrine in Cobel's aunt's room yet. And no, we haven't really dived into it too much yet, but there is some interesting things here, of course. Obviously, it resembles her own shrine that she had to Kier in her own house. Here, of course, we see the representations of the 4 tempers, just like she had in her own shrine. We see the picture of Kier himself. But you also see some other interesting things when you look a little closer as well, like these. You got all of these different cards. You got one representing visions, verve, wiles, probity, benevolence. Very, very interesting. And this is one thing I always really applaud Severance for, is their attention to detail, the attention to throw some very interesting things in the background where, the average viewer in the audience might not even catch it. But of course, viewers like us who love the show and love diving into all of the aspects of the show, these are the kind of things we always notice. The tempers in the background, the Kier, the candles, like this is the kind of stuff we always see. We notice because we actively look for it when we watch these episodes. But yeah, what did you think of the Kier? Do you think that this is where she got her idea to create her own shrine from, that she was mimicking what was here, what she grew up with?
Yes. And actually, I believe that we get a little bit of a confirmation on that idea from the podcast where Patricia Arquette was in. So, what she said about the interaction between her and her Aunt Sissy was that even though she dislikes her, she modeled herself after her Aunt Sissy. She modeled herself after her aunt, who really believed in the principles of Kier and who lived by them, even though she disliked her. So when I think of somebody modeling themselves after them, I can see why she had her own shrine. She included all of the elements that her aunt Sissy included in her shrine because she did want to follow in her aunt's footsteps, to be a true believer. So I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's definitely something that she did in order to try to please and to show her aunt that she herself lived by the Kier values. At least that's how Patricia Arquette explained the relationship between both of them. So I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's because she saw it
Mhm.
growing up.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, especially with, as you mentioned, the added detail of Patricia Arquette actually stating that she has modeled her persona after her aunt, even though we see the relationship is horrible. She despises her aunt, yet there still must have been something about her aunt's persona that she respected enough to emulate, even so slightly. So yeah, after hearing that, that's a super good point, and that definitely makes me believe even more that yeah, this is her emulating her aunt. This is her doing what she was taught to do, what she grew up with. She's mimicking her childhood. She's mimicking what her aunt's lifestyle is. And not just with the shrine, but with her being incredibly loyal to Kier and to Lumen as well, just like the aunt was, at least up until now. I know it looks like her loyalties are now starting to shift, but up until now, Cobel, nobody was more loyal to Lumen than Cobel. So yeah, you definitely get to see that. That makes a lot more sense. Hearing that from you, that Patricia Arquette says that in the inside the episode or in the podcast, that definitely makes a little bit more sense, even more sense that she's mimicking her aunt's lifestyle, even down to creating the same shrine that she has. Very interesting indeed. Yeah, I mean, very interesting episode. Again, I like backstory episodes every once in a while that peel back some of these layers of these characters and also give us something new to look forward to in terms of a foreshadowing, setting up new episodes, or as in this case, getting a full-on massive reveal to find out that it was actually Cobel herself that created this technology in the first place. Yeah, very interesting. Can you bring up the picture of the vertebrae again? Let's see. What picture was that? Was that one of the pictures in her notebook? Let's see. The notebook would be down here a little more. The vertebrae right here. Is this the one you wanted to see? Because here we see the Severance chip, what it looks like, a little bit of her blueprints, and how she kind of created it. This is the jewel. This is what everything is worth right here. This is what Lumen created and based their entire company around, this Severance chip. So yeah, I don't know. Oh, the bone.
With the cards that I was
Okay.
wondering, I might be in from mode, right? But as soon as I saw the cards, I was like, oh my God, tarot cards. But those are not
Yes.
tarot cards.
No, they're not
So,
tarots.
okay. And what Kristen Unpronounceable is saying that is a vertebrae.
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah, it does look like a vertebrae bone. Yeah, like a dried up, boiled vertebrae bone that she has a part of her Kier shrine. Why, I'm not sure, but yeah. If this is the bone you wanted to see, Chris Tan, definitely. Yeah, let me know. What do you guys think of the bone? What do you think it represents? Why does she have this among all of her Kier shrine? I think he means the ones with the cards. Yeah, the bones on the antlers. Harmony is the chosen one. They are aligned in a tarot fashion. They are aligned in a tarot fashion. That is very true, Scotty. Absolutely, they are aligned in that kind of fashion, and they do have they do represent similar things in terms of what the tarot cards represent and what these cards are representing as well. The vision, verve, wiles, benevolence. It's definitely similar for sure. And yeah, the cards are the 9 principles. There it is. Exactly, Jen. Where was my head at? Yes, the 9 principles of Kier and Lumen. That is what it is a representation of. Exactly. This is why Jen is the teacher. And you just completely taught me. I don't know how I missed that. I usually catch these things. I feel like a rookie up here. Jeez. Yes, that is exactly it. These are the 9 principles of Kier: the vision, verb, wit, cheer, humanity, benevolence, nimbleness, probity, and wiles. And we hear a few of these mentioned even by the aunt in this episode as well, when she's talking about Cobel and some of these principles that Cobel is actively breaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The aunt's a true blue Lumen diehard fanatic, seems.
She is, and it really gives you an insight into why Cobel struggles, right? With turning against the company, but also believing in the company. We were all so confused as to why she told Mark, get away from them, Mark, but then also rushes to help Mr. Milkshake and to tell him the overtime contingency has been activated, get to the room, right? It didn't make sense, that struggle of telling Mark to get away from the company and yet helping the company take this away from the innies. When you see what her aunt was like, you get to see the fact that what is instilled in her is this love for Kier, that even though she may try as hard as she might to overcome it, it's still always going to be there. It's still always going to remain part of who she is. And therefore, the struggle of telling Mark to get away from them while also experimenting on Mark, living across the street from Mark, stalking Mark.
It makes sense. It does make sense. And yeah, I mean, we always wondered, like, what is this fascination that she has with Mark? Why is she getting so close to Mark? We know why Lumen, finally, we know why Lumen is so invested in Mark, that he apparently seems to be the only one that is capable of completing this Cold Harbor file, which is most likely due to his connection to Gemma, his emotional connection to Gemma, as she is also directly tied to Cold Harbor herself. But yeah, no, I like that. I like that. I think that's perfectly fitting. I mean, we've seen, and this is what's good about episodes like this. They really do completely reveal so many things about a character, where it does kind of make you go back to previous scenes, to previous episodes, and you kind of get a different perception on them. You start to see some other scenes in a different light now that you have this added context. And that's why, I know this wasn't the best well-received episode. I know some people had problems with it, which, again, totally fine. Everybody is right to like or don't like any episode they want. But for me, I don't mind a backstory episode like this that just kind of solely dedicates to diving in and just really peeling back these layers on what is usually a very kind of walled up character that we didn't know a whole lot about. And yes, it makes you go back and reevaluate some of the other previous scenes that she has been in, and you see them in a new light. Like the one we talked about at the beginning of the stream, for instance, which is the perfect example of this. The first time we see the scene of Helena and Cobel in the parking lot, when Cobel is trying to get her job back for a second time, when she ultimately kind of turns away and walks away from Helena. We hear Helena say to Cobel, I think you have overestimated your contributions. And now we see just how profound that statement really is, because we have this added context as to who Cobel really is. Now that we know that she literally created this technology, no, there isn't a single way that she could ever overestimate her contributions to this company. This company is what it is because of her. So now it just paints the entire scene in a totally different light. And that's what I like about backstory episodes like this. They make you go back and kind of reevaluate so many other scenes.
Yeah, and another part of that statement, not only does she say that, and now that we know that it was actually Cobel who developed the technology, it just hits you harder. But then she goes further and says, you overestimated your contribution and underestimated your blessings.
Your
And now that
blessings.
we know, exactly, now that we know what the company did to the town, to her mother, to her
Mm,
childhood, it becomes more insulting to call this a blessing when what Lumen did is Lumen came into her life and just destroyed it, destroyed every part
yeah,
of what her life was, right? So to
yeah.
say that to somebody that was a child worker at the factory is insult, adding insult to injury, really.
It is. It is. It's adding insult to what is already a very injured and very fresh wound. She's pouring salt right into that open wound, a fresh wound that has just kind of hit her as she literally just lost her job. So yes, Cobel knows in her heart, she knows the contribution she made to Lumen. She knows it was vast. She knows that Lumen owes everything they are to her technology. And then when she sees Lumen actually is willing to throw her out on the street, essentially just kick her out to the curb because of a few mistakes that the innies made. It does. I mean, you can totally understand why Cobel is finally coming around, why she's finally waking up to the idea that Lumen wasn't the company that she thought it was. Maybe she always knew Lumen was like this and she just excused it because she was so brainwashed. But again, it seems like she has broke her programming in a sense. The brainwashing is starting to wear off and she's seeing Lumen for who they really are. And yes, again, I do think this conversation here between Helena and Cobel, I do think this was the final straw for her. I do think this was that final moment where she finally realized, okay, I'm done. I don't want this job back anymore. You guys have threw me aside. You have completely disrespected me. You have stolen my life's work. And then you dare to tell me I overestimate my contribution to the company? Nope, I'm out of here. I'm done. I'm going to grab this evidence and I'm going to take you frickin' people down. That's the kind of mindset I would have anyway. I would totally be in that same mindset if I was Cobel. I'd be like, okay, that's it. It is time to dance now, Lumen. We are doing this. Put on your gloves.
Would you say, come tame this tempers, assholes? Like
Come
Hamilton?
tame these tempers, assholes. Love that. I'll never not love that. I got to get that one clipped up and added on here. Or I would maybe just handle it the way Irving handled it.
Irving, stop this! She's a fucking mole!
What are you doing?
I'm gonna kill her, Mr. Milchin!
I'm gonna
I'm gonna kill her, Mr. Milchin.
I love that. I love that. I
Love
love
it.
it.
Love it. Yeah, and Kristen says, I love exposition, but I'm a freak. Exposition can be good on occasion. Now, endless exposition where it's only a character talking and revealing answers via conversation, that exposition can kind of get a little bit boring. But when it's exposition like this, it's not telling us, it's actually showing us. It's showing us this background. It's showing us all the things that Cobel went through. It's showing us what she went through in her childhood. If this was Cobel simply telling this story to somebody and it was just endless exposition, I don't think it would have come across as well. I do think it would have been a little more dull. Sometimes you need to show people, not tell people. And that's just a basic rule of storytelling, especially for filmmaking that is a visual medium. You always want, if there's a way that you can show people a scene over just telling them the scene, always go with showing them. It's always a better option for sure. And yeah, I don't mind learning a little bit of backstory, a little bit of exposition like this, if it's something they're showing us and not just endlessly talking and endlessly telling us. And we talked about this during From, for the season finale of From in particular. While we did finally get some answers for From at the end of season 3 in terms of the monsters, their origins, the Ankui children, we got some decent answers, but we didn't see any of it. We didn't actually get to see any of it. We didn't get to see any flashbacks. We didn't get to see any scenes depicting any of this. It was all just learned through an exposition from Fatima. Fatima just telling us as the audience what happened as she's telling Boyd and Ellis. we as the audience are learning at the same time they are. So while it's nice to get answers every once in a while, it's nice to have some big reveals every once in a while, I feel like that scene could have used a little bit of what Severance did here, where they showed us the origin, they showed us the backstory, and didn't just tell us. But that could be just a nitpick on my part, because I very much prefer the visual medium of storytelling over the audio. Again, it is film at the end of the day. It's meant to be seen. It's meant to be felt. Yes, of course, it's meant to be heard too as well. But I think scenes that are profound as giving somebody a big reveal or an interesting backstory, for me, those things are just always better seen rather than hearing them through exposition, I guess. Yeah, although my favorite movie takes place in one room. What is your favorite movie? Let me know what that movie is. Your favorite movie takes place in one room. What is that room? I hope it's not Saw.
Hmm.
I hope it is not
Oh my
Saw.
goodness. Oh my, I'm trying to think of like what that movie could be. But I completely agree with you. I even would like to have seen Miss Cobel as a child. So I would have liked to seen a young Miss Cobel working at the ether factory and
Yes.
performing her job duties. I think that it would have connected us even more to the suffering and the pain and the trauma that Miss Cobel went through. And I thought that maybe we were gonna get that when they took out the book, the yearbook, and then we didn't really. It was kind of like halfway. So maybe next episode we'll be able to see a little bit more of that. But
Yeah.
I totally get what you mean by exposition. I would have liked to have seen a young little Miss Cobel working at the
Mhm.
factory. And I think that we
Yeah.
would have, while we connect with her now, we would have connected with her even further.
I do totally agree 100%. It would have been nice for in terms of context as well. And we talked a little bit about this during the after show. That was one of my slight gripes I had with the episode. One of my problems that I wish the episode would have included, to kind of fully showcase just how much damage Lumen did to this town by invading it, mining it for its resources, its people, and then leaving it in the dust and not putting anything back into the town, as we hear him saying to her at the beginning in the coffee shop. That would have been something I wish they would have included, especially knowing they only had a 37-minute runtime. They had plenty of time where they could have added a few more scenes. It would have been nice to see what did this town look like before Lumen arrived. See what was this town really like? Was it at one point a small, peaceful coastal town that had a prosperous community? Small, of course. We do hear the aunt say that there was no town before Lumen, but I get the feeling that's more of her Lumen dogmatic view than the actual truth. Obviously, there was a town here beforehand. Lumen wouldn't have moved here and set up shop here if there weren't resources for them to use in the first place. So obviously, there was a town here well before Lumen came. So I think that could have been an interesting aspect. Show a flashback to what the town looked like before Lumen arrived, and then when we see all of these scenes and we see just how broken and how run down the town actually is, we get a better full extent as to how much damage Lumen left in their wake, not just in the structure of the town, but in the very heart and soul of the town too. It's been plagued with ether addicts and ether dealers ever since Lumen arrived here, which is something we see right at the very beginning of the episode. Harmony's brushing her teeth next to a freaking ether crack den, whatever it is, old bus. I just feel like that could have added a little more context in terms of the damage that Lumen does in their wake when they invade these small towns, which unfortunately is something that does really happen in the real world, where these big giant corporations will set up shop in these very small towns, mine them for resources, whatever that resource is, and then they just leave them in the dust without putting anything back into the community. That way the community is all but broken when that corporation leaves. This is something that really does happen. So I feel like that was something they could have showcased just a little bit better. Show the town beforehand, show Lumen moving into the town, and as you mentioned, also show a little flashback to Cobel as a child working in the ether factory. Give us the full context as to how much damage Lumen really did to this town and its people.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you mentioned that this is in fact a reality, and the fact that Severance is talking about some very complex themes and topics that we are all too familiar with. This reminds me so much of the Purdue Pharma and the OxyContin epidemic, where you would see towns like this just
Yeah.
decimated, completely decimated by Purdue Pharma. You would see the
Ugh.
opioid crisis in action, where it was parents unable to care for their children, and what happens to the children when your parent is just not there, right? It took over rural countries, like rural little towns like this, because they were
Yeah.
pushing it so badly. And so you would see, for example, here, we knew that the children were doing it all the way to the old woman that we see at the coffee shop. So it's all generations, it's all across the board. The people that get destroyed by the ether or by the company, really. It doesn't leave anybody unscathed, not even the children.
Not even the children, and that is it is the tragedy of these kinds of moves and these kinds of corporations moving into these small towns and just completely decimating them in their wake. And yeah, I 100% agree with you, and it would have been a little nice for them to showcase that a little bit better. I guess that would have been pretty cool. I got to say what is up to my buddy American Discord, aka Shelby. What is up, Shelby? One of the best comic book artists working to date. Awesome friend of the channel. And yeah, I cannot wait for you to catch up on Severance. As soon as you are caught up, my friend, definitely give me a message, and I would love to get some of your thoughts and some of your ideas on what all this craziness that we are seeing. And I'm glad you're watching it. That is awesome to see. But awesome to see you pop in, my friend. I hope you are doing well, and I hope the art is going smoothly, as I know it usually is with you. You are the best, after all. Inking a page as we speak. Awesome, man. I hope you are having a good one. Hope you're having a good one. Finish up some pages for Marat. Oh, Marat Michaels. Awesome. Some Rob Liefeld book he's teamed up with, I think. Awesome. Of course, Rob Liefeld is the creator of Deadpool, so Shelby works with nothing but the best. Love that. Awesome, man. Awesome. Keep it up. Keep it up. I come from a comic book background before this channel was a television review channel. And Shelby is one of the best artists I've ever come across. Awesome, man. Awesome, man. So Kier created this town. Essentially, yes. And I think we see the kind of evidence of that all over the place, where we see Kier written on the side of the buildings. We see the Lumen this is the Lumen ether factory that they set up in this town. So while this town, I don't think they fully created it. The town was already in place when Lumen found it, but I imagine it was probably very small, like a super small coastal fishing village by the looks of it, being so close to the water, all of the docks, probably a lot of dock work, a lot of fishing available in the town. It was probably just that, a small little fishery town. And Lumen probably saw this isolated town in the middle of nowhere and thought, okay, this is a perfect place for us to set up shop, mine this place for resources, and then get out while the getting is good and not have to worry about any repercussions because it is so remote. That is why they target these smaller, more rural area towns, as PM was saying. That's the whole gist. So they can get in and get out clean and not have to worry about any entanglements and any of the numerous federal laws that they break while setting up in this town, which there are numerous. But no, they didn't create the town, but they definitely co-opted it and turned it into what it was, for sure. Yeah, a sealing village. Absolutely. Totally see that. Could totally see that being a nice little sealing village. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Next episode is Cobel meeting Mark/Devin and Helly finding Irv's directions and goes to the testing floor. Yes, I saw that. That looks so interesting. And I'm actually working right now on my episode 9 preview breakdown video. I will probably have that up on the channel either tomorrow or Tuesday, the latest. But yes, I'm working on that preview right now. It looks like episode 9 is going to be very interesting. The synopsis does state that Mark and Devin team up with an unlikely ally, which of course, I think we all know at this point, the unlikely ally is going to be Cobel. But it'll be interesting to see what are they going to do? What plan are they going to formulate? And that was one of the interesting things that we hear from Devin and Mark on the phone, actually, at the end of the episode. We hear her finally pick up the phone for Devin, and Cobel hears Devin say, Mark is reintegrating, but they want to try something new, indicating that maybe Mark and Devin already have some kind of new plan that they want to use, that they want Cobel's help with, maybe. But whatever is the case, it's going to be interesting to see how is this unlikely alliance going to play out. How are Mark, Devin, and Cobel going to be able to coexist and work together? Is there too much bad blood there? Will they be able to put everything aside? This is the same woman at the end of the day who completely invaded your family and your home in a very deceptive manner just to get close to you, just to get close to Mark, just to get close to the baby even. So Cobel and Mark and his sister, again, that's why I was surprised that Devin even reached out to Cobel to begin with after everything that they went through together. But again, desperate times do breed desperate measures. But that's going to be an interesting team up. What exactly is going to happen with Cobel, Mark, and Devin when they finally meet? What is the reunion going to look like? After all, Cobel and Mark in particular, Audi Mark and Cobel in particular, they have not even seen each other since episode 2 of this season, the very beginning of the season, when we see Cobel first moving out of her house and Mark sees her in her car and stops her in the middle of the road and asks her, what is this all about? Do you know something about Gemma? And then Cobel just kind of screams and steps on the freaking gas and almost runs him over. But that's it. They have not seen each other since that meeting, or Audi Mark. So I guess that's my next question to you guys in the chat and to you as well, PM. How do you think this reunion between Mark and Cobel is going to go? Is it going to be one of those things where Mark is going to just instantly start asking her all the questions he can to learn more about Gemma? Is this going to be a little bit more of a vitriolic reunion, or are they going to kind of come to terms? Will it be more civilized?
Well, I go back to the line that we haven't seen. So you have shown us some previews, and the preview that you showed us, there's that famous Cobel line of Mark, there will be no honeymoon ending for you. So I'm guessing that it's gonna be a back and forth. I'm guessing that it's gonna be Mark demanding that she makes this right and that she provide answers, while she is stubborn and is kind of in that attitude of there's no way to fix this. Like once this is done, it's done, and maybe giving us more information as to how severe the technology is. So I expect that they will eventually work together, but we're gonna get a lot of just back and forth vitriol between them, right? To the point where she's gonna tell him like, "There's no way to fix this. Like, there's gonna be no honeymoon ending. It doesn't matter if you find Gemma, or it doesn't matter if you reintegrate. This is not gonna work out for you." And it also makes me think that that line that we heard about he's still alive is referring to Cobel finding Mark and realizing, okay, he's still alive. It's okay. Like we have enough time, perhaps, to still do something about it. Right?
Yeah, I could totally see that being the case now. Yeah, because that was always one of the kind of mysterious lines. We hear Cobel saying, obviously the first one, Mark, there will be no honeymoon ending for you. And then he's still alive. And yeah, I could totally potentially see that being the context behind that, where she's saying, okay, Mark's still alive. We still have time to formulate a plan. Because that is essentially the first thing she asks Devin when she finds out Mark is reintegrating. Regabi hasn't killed him yet. So yes, I mean, I could totally potentially see that being what the real context is going to be when we finally see that scene play out in full. But yeah, I'm very interested to see this reunion. Very interested to see how it is going to play out. Is it going to be a calm reunion where they come to terms? Is it going to be one of those things where there's just too much damage? There's just too much deception there for them to ever trust each other? even if they do form some kind of alliance, I get the feeling it's going to be a very uneasy alliance where they are working together, yes, but they might not fully trust each other. They'll probably never fully trust each other. I mean, I certainly would not ever trust Cobel. Even if I did put things aside and we did come to terms in the sense where we struck a deal to work together to take down Lumen or to strike a blow against Lumen or whatever their goal is going to be, to rescue Gemma maybe, to stop Cold Harbor, whatever the game, whatever their plan is going to be, it would always be in the back of my mind who Cobel is. This is the person, and first impressions are everything. And their first impression of Cobel is her invading their family undercover, under false pretenses, just to get closer to them. So if they do work together, I imagine there's always going to be that uneasy feeling where, yes, we're aligned, but we do not trust each other. How could they? Cobel doesn't seem like the trusting type either. I imagine she's never going to wholeheartedly trust anybody, let alone Mark and Devin. And hopefully Mark and Devin have that same kind of mindset where even if they do strike a deal or work together, they're always cognizant of who Cobel really is and how she is very capable of manipulation and using people and lying. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I think it will form an alliance against the common enemy, Lumen. And it does seem like that is where it's heading, at least based on the way the episode ends, the way that Cobel's mindset is at the end of this episode, where she does seem like she's finally done with Lumen. The obvious play would be them teaming up to strike some kind of blow against Lumen. But I guess the question is, what does that look like? What kind of blow are they going to strike against Lumen? And yes, who is Irving talking to on the payphone? That is the thing. There's still so much we don't know. There's still so many aspects that are out there on the board that we don't have a really clear picture of. Irving being one of them. Irving's outie could come in and play a huge part in something like this. We already get a little bit of a sense that Irving is potentially working against Lumen already, just based on, as you said, the phone calls that he's making in the payphone. Every time we hear him talk in that payphone, he's always talking about his innie this, my innie was discovered, my innie got fired, my innie got the message. So you definitely get the sense that he is working with someone or multiple someones already, gathering information on Lumen, maybe working against them, maybe formulating some kind of plan. We saw all the evidence inside Irving's house, of course. He's been researching Severance. He's been researching the severed floor and severed employees, even down to even finding out where some of them live, which is how he knew where Bert lived. So yeah, that is something that still needs to be answered. And I thought it was interesting that in the very same episode where we see Irving get invited to a dinner is the very same episode where we see Drummond enter Irving's house and look for his evidence, which of course did cast a lot of suspicion on Outie Bert. Many people think Outie Bert is secretly working for Lumen. And I tend to think that could potentially be the case as well. I feel like there is evidence there, not just that scene, but the also added slip of Fields stating that Bert worked for Lumen for 20 years, even though Severance has only been out for 12. So there's already some reason to doubt Bert. There's already suspicion on him. So yes, we still need to find out what's going on with Irving, though. Who is Irving talking to on the phone? Is he already aligned with some kind of rebellion, maybe? One thing we did hear Bert say in that episode is he mentions the group Whole Mind, which seems to be some kind of activist group that is actively protesting against Lumen. We see some of them in season 1 when Mark is on that date with his sister's friend and they come across the protesters. Those were Whole Mind protesters. But I wouldn't be too surprised if this Whole Mind protester group was a little bit more than just an activist group. Maybe they're a little bit more organized. Maybe they're a little bit bigger than we think. After all, the Severance program is widely shunned by many people in the public, and not just many people. There's other states that haven't even legalized it. Severance is only legal in a handful of states in this world, which I think is why they're cozying up to people like senators and stuff to hopefully get it passed in multiple states. But I could totally potentially see that this Whole Mind group is a little bit more than just your average protesting activist. Maybe they're a little more organized. Maybe they have some more resources behind them than we know. Maybe this is a full-fledged rebellion that is already forming, and maybe that's who Irving is working with. Because I just found it very interesting that they mentioned Whole Mind in that very same episode where Irving goes to the dinner. I just felt like it was too much of a coincidence to mention these things so close to each other if they're not related. So part of me is thinking that Irving is already working with this whole mind group. Could Regabi potentially already be working with this whole mind group as well? Maybe. Or maybe it's one of those cases where Regabi, Cobel, Mark, and Devin can end up teaming up with this whole mind group. So now they finally do have the needed resources to actually strike a blow against Lumen. Because again, Cobel on her own simply just isn't enough, even though she does have this very damning evidence against Lumen. And even though she can tangibly prove that Jane Eagan lied about creating the Severance technology, it's still not enough. She is still not enough by herself to take down a corporation as big and powerful as Lumen. But if she has a whole network, a whole rebellion behind her, and they're armed with this information, then it becomes a little bit more of a not even fight, but at least a much more manageable fight.
That makes a lot of sense. And I would love to see Cobel working with the Fuck You Lumen crew, right? The rock stars and the protesters and the whole Mind Collective. I would love to see her working with them because it really brings everything full circle. It makes me think of your Frankenstein theory, where she has to now take charge of destroying what she has created, right? And it also reminds me of the Mark and Gemma story, right? They took his first love away. And so now I could definitely see all of them banding together to go into the building and get Gemma out. I think that that would be an amazing episode if we were to see just like the group of the whole mind collective coming into the office, into the building, because Cobel knows everything about that building. She knows how it works. She knows who has clearance. So she would be able to maneuver getting into the building if they were able to take hold of it.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, they need help. They definitely need some kind of help. There's no way they can just do it on their own. Even the four of them, even Mark, even if Regabi and Cobel do manage to team up, even though they seem to be the very diehard enemies, at least Regabi certainly is not going to trust Cobel. She looks at Cobel as a Lumen soldier at the end of the day, someone who would never betray them. So even if Cobel reaches out with this story of she wants to turn on Lumen, I don't think Regabi would ever even believe her. So them two working together is going to take some work. But even if they do manage to team up Regabi, Cobel, Mark, and Devin, yeah, it's still just not enough. They need resources. They need manpower. They need something bigger behind them that can hopefully help combat this massive entity that Lumen is. They just cannot do it alone. I think Cobel will jailbreak Mark's chip and fully integrate him. That's an interesting possibility. And again, I think it's very intriguing how Cobel created this technology, and she was under the impression that reintegration was not possible. It wasn't even possible to achieve. Now that she's seeing somebody else achieved something on her technology that she didn't even think was possible, it adds a very interesting aspect to it because, yes, I imagine if nothing else, Cobel is probably going to want to understand this reintegration process. How did she discover it? How did Regabi know this would work? How did she put it into practice? How did she know to sync up these brainwaves, or what frequencies would work on these brainwaves? Like, I imagine all of this stuff is going through Cobel's head, from going from reintegration is impossible to now all of a sudden, holy crap, it is possible, and it's somebody else who cracked the code on my technology. So I think she's going to be very interested, at the very least, to find out how Regabi figured out what Regabi did. And that could make for a very interesting conversation between the two of them, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I could see Cobel.
Oh, I was just going to mention, I saw in the comments that a lot of the Sebies were mentioning this final showdown between Regabi and Cobel because they're both geniuses, right? According to what we know so far, they're both super intelligent and working on opposite ends. So I could totally see that.
I could, yeah, I could definitely totally see that. It's, there's a lot of damage between a lot of these characters. they're not just going to come out and trust each other. There's going to be a learning curve. There's going to be some growing pains here if some of these alliances are ultimately going to get struck. And yeah, stuff like this just does not happen at the snap of the fingers. Like there's going to be some damage here. There's going to be some stuff that they're going to have to get through to get to that point. But yeah, interesting. Very interesting. Regabi may die if she returns. Oof, Quan. Maybe. I know Regabi certainly, I mean, she got right the hell out of town. As soon as she heard that Devin was even thinking about calling Cobel, Regabi got the hell out of there super fast. And yeah, considering how much she fears Lumen and how much she really believes that that Cobel is nothing but a Lumen soldier, that she'll never betray them. Yeah, I mean, getting Regabi to return, knowing Cobel is there, is going to take some doing. It's definitely going to take some doing, for sure. For sure. I don't believe she took the notebook to show receipts. And I guess that is the question in a nutshell, is essentially, what is she ultimately going to do with this information? Did she take the information? Did she take the notebook because she wants to expose Lumen publicly? Or is it more along the lines that she's going to use this privately as some kind of leverage against Lumen to strike some kind of deal? That, I guess, is the big question. What is going to happen next? What is she going to do with this notebook? Just completely go balls to the wall and go public and try and just be complete corporate whistleblower very loudly, very publicly? Or it could potentially be along the lines where, yes, she maybe uses it for some other kind of means to strike some kind of deal privately, to use it as leverage, I guess. And I guess that's one of the last questions we'll ask you guys in the chat, and you as well, PM, before we get ready to close on out and dive into our next festivities. But what do you guys think in the chat? How do you think Cobel is going to utilize this technology, this notebook? Do you think she will ultimately be a whistleblower and publicly try and take Lumen down? Or do you think she's going to use this as more of a private means of using it as leverage against Lumen? Will she go public, or will she contact Lumen in private and go the leverage route? What do you think, Pia?
Well, I know that we see her standing in this just magnificent building where there's a fireplace and it looks very impressive. So it makes me think that
Yes.
she's standing somewhere where the actual board lives, or maybe even Helena's house. It makes me think, if we see her standing there and having a conversation, that she's taking this directly to the top. She's potentially talking to the board and letting them know that she has the information that she needs in order to prove that this is her technology. So that's where I see it going. I think she's going to confront them one on one and let them know that she has the evidence that she needs to prove that everything is a lie. The entire thing, everything that Lumens has ever said about Severance is a lie. Because otherwise, why would she be there, right? This looks like maybe Elena's house, maybe Elena's father's house.
No. It does. Yeah, like, I mean, it definitely looks like it's a very very nice place. Looks like it definitely belongs to someone very wealthy. It looks like somewhere where a Lumen CEO or the daughter of a Lumen CEO would live, doesn't it? It kind of just looks like it's a house like that. And yeah, and as the chat brings up, Toothless Paste, another great name. I think Cobel knows going public is a death sentence, and Lumen will cover it up, and that is a real possibility. We hear that very early on in the show, that Lumen has people everywhere. When Regabi is talking, when Mark is talking to Regabi at the beginning of season 2, and he's saying, "How did they fake my wife's death? Whose body did I go and identify?" And we hear Regabi say, "Lumen has people in the morgue." And of course they do. They are a multinational corporation with companies all over the world. They're probably the most powerful entity in this world. So absolutely, you can best believe that they have contacts and people on the payroll everywhere, from police stations to journalists to morgues, everywhere. So going public is not going to be as easy as going to your local newsstand and saying, "Hey, publish this damning story that's going to put you in danger." Any journalist is going to take a look at this and realize, even if I want to help, me writing this story puts me in danger too. So many journalists might not even be brave enough to even do something like this. So yes, I do agree with you. Going outright public, if that is her plan, if her plan is to do something like that, she's going to have to be very careful in how she does it, because Lumen is going to have numerous ways to snuff her out, which leads me to believe that she will probably use it more as a private leverage tool more than just going public, because she knows what Lumen is capable of. She knows how easily a plan like that could go very wrong very fast. So I definitely expect her to go more the quiet route of using it as leverage. And as you brought up as well, PM, maybe that's exactly what this scene is here, of her standing inside this room. Maybe this is her getting ready to have that meeting with James Eagan or Helena.
I think so. I think there really is no other reason for that scene, but it also reminds me of another scene that you have shown us that we have not seen, and that is Mr. Frolic, Mr. Drummond, slamming Mark against the wall. So we
Yes.
saw that preview maybe 2 episodes ago, and it still hasn't happened. I have been waiting. So I'm thinking maybe they go in there with Miss Cobel, and that's when Drummond slams Mark against the wall so that she can,
Ooh.
maybe go further into um, the testing room. Maybe they try to take over, right? So that should be
Yeah.
coming in the next episode, the slamming against the wall.
I could definitely see that being the case. Definitely see that being the case. Because yeah, that's one of the few scenes that were in early trailers that we haven't seen yet. There were a few early trailers and even a few early stills that were released that we haven't seen in any of the episodes yet. That one with Drummond pushing Mark up against the wall, and this one as well with this weird security looking guard pushing Dylan up against the wall. What exactly is happening here? What's going on in this scene? What did Dylan do? So yeah, there's been a few shots in some of these trailers and in some of these stills that we haven't seen in any of the episodes yet. And yeah, I imagine they're going to be coming. I could totally see the Drummond scene being next episode. Definitely. Definitely. Cobel is out for Lumen blood and is going to do it absolutely in the most bonkers way possible.
It would be her style. That is her style.
It would be. It would be fitting for who Cobel is. But I don't know. I get the feeling she might be a little smarter than that. As much as she does want revenge, and after how many years, why would she do all of a sudden do that now? Well, I think we saw that in episode 8. I feel like episode 8 really kind of showcased that, where we finally get to see Cobel waking up for the first time and realizing that Lumen is an evil corporation. She used to be so loyal to Lumen, and we see her at the end of episode 8. She's completely done with Lumen now. So why would she do something like this now? I think that's why. I think it took her this long to finally realize that Lumen wasn't worthy of her loyalty. So I think that's why now, after all these years, that we're seeing this kind of Cobel. But yeah, in terms of her just going straight up public, I don't know. I think that's a little dangerous. I like the idea of potentially her maybe using it as some sort of leverage. I think that's a little more likely, a little more of an attainable goal, maybe. But who knows? Who knows? Whatever she does, I hope that you are right. I hope that she does do it in the most bonkers way possible, because that would be very Cobel fitting, if nothing else. Would be very, very fitting. Awesome stuff, guys. Awesome stuff. Great discussion as always. We love diving into these episodes, of course. That's why we will continue to be doing it each and every week. And now that you guys have wanted us to start doing after shows, we are going to do that for episode 9 and 10 as well. We will still do our regular pregame show before the episode airs, and then we will go live right after the episode is over for an episode 9 after show live right here on the channel on Thursday. And of course, this upcoming Tuesday, we have a very interesting stream, a very interesting collaboration that I am super excited to do. It's not something I do often, but every once in a while I like to collaborate with other YouTubers whose content I very much enjoy. And this Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are going to be having on the one and only Geek Atomy himself. I know many of you know Geek Atomy, of course. I'm sure we share a similar audience. He's covering some awesome Severance content right now. And this Tuesday, Geek Atomy PM and I will be diving into all things Severance. That's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
It's going to be so much fun, Sevies. So with Igor, as you guys know, he is in another country. So it's going to be an early version of the Tuesday show. So I'm sure
Yes.
Jeremy will put it up, but it's going to be earlier. So just be on the lookout for the timing. It's not going to be the usual afternoon one, but it's going to be so much fun. I'm so excited.
It's going to be fun. It is going to be fun. I haven't collaborated with anybody in a little while, and it's always fun to get somebody like Geek Atomy on whose content I do really enjoy. I know he's doing great things over there with his Severance content, and he was also a fellow from YouTuber as well, which is something I always respect. Us from YouTubers, we like to stick together. So yeah, that's going to be fun. I feel like it's something I should have done a while ago. I can't believe it's taking me this long to get him on the channel. It's something I should have reached out to him a long time ago. But yes, that is going to be this Tuesday. It's going to be an early show around 3 p.m. Eastern or so, 12 Pacific. So definitely come and hang out with us on that Tuesday as we dive into all things Severance with Geek Atomy himself. And then, of course, we will be continuing our regular schedule all throughout the week and continuing to see just where exactly this crazy show is ultimately going to take us. What rabbit holes are we going to go down? How big is this tinfoil hat going to get? What is going on with Lumen? What is Cold Harbor really? What will Cobel do with her newfound wisdom? How is this story going to end? I don't know, but I certainly cannot wait to find out. And we will be here every single time diving into all of the craziness with each and every one of you every Tuesday, Thursday, and of course, Saturday as well. But I want to give a big thank you again to each and every one of you for joining us on this fine Saturday evening. And if you guys have not already, definitely subscribe to PM Philosophy's channel. Her link is in the description below. She has some wonderful Severance content as well, so you do not want to miss her uploads. So give her a sub if you haven't already. And until next time, Sebies, stay safe out there in this crazy world. Keep those tinfoil hats on, folks, and I will see each and every one of you on the next one.